At the beginning of the story, a few people are fighting with the Demon King. After some time, they become injured and stop fighting. A red-haired girl asks a white-haired man, Nox von Reinharber, why he made a deal with the devil and betrayed them all. That man says he did not betray them, rather, it was they who betrayed him. The status window of that man informs him that he has cleared the first part of Inner Lunatic. He thinks this is not bad, as he got a bunch of items this time too, and managed to clear hidden quests. He is satisfied with all of this, except for the fact that he is going to die next month. He remembers that 2 years ago, when his name was Yoo Chan, and when he visited the doctor asked him not to panic and just listen to him carefully. Doctor tells him that he came from Roman 20 University Hospital and has been to 2 hospitals. He further informs him that they have done many tests, but they have gotten the same results, so they can prescribe him some pain relief medicines and take them when it gets too much. Yoo Chan says it has already been 2 years, but he is still not getting well. Suddenly, he feels nauseous, and when vomits, he spits blood. He says he guesses the result won't change just because he keeps thinking about it. Then his phone bell rings, and he gets a notification of an appointment from the hospital. He says he has no one to talk to despite all that. No one reached out to him after the memory loss. There is no one for him to reach out to either. He knows he can't go out anywhere in his current state. Unfortunately, he is a last-stage cancer patient. To divert his mind, he decides to start a new game. While adding information, he asks about the character he should make this time. The traits shown are both mana sensitivity genius and swordsmanship and combat genius. He is asked to just pick one trait, as if he picks 2 or more genius traits, there will be penalties. His negative trait is mentioned as being terminally ill, and so far his character is. He is asked if he wants to start the game with the chosen character. But later the character's name has been forcibly changed. When the character's settings are complete, he finds himself in a different place. He says this place is when he was enveloped with the feeling of déjà vu, but now he has become the worst character, Nox von Reinharber, in this damned game. He meets the Inner Lunatic's third dark renowned family. Later, someone talks to him through the screen and says he would call him Nox now instead of Yoo Chan. Yoo Chan is surprised to know that that unknown knows his real name, which was left to him by his parents. He wonders if the being who puts him here may know about his past. That being then says he did well for the last 2 years, so he deserves to be here, so he welcomes me back here. That being also says he can't tell him much about his identity just yet, but he hopes that he may be of some help to Yoo Chan. So he advises Chan to enter a Lydian academy to grow his powers and stay as close as he can to the main story. The whole truth will be lying there in that place. He feels his current self has transmitted into the final boss of a game called an Inner Lunatic. He thinks if the Inner Lunatic is reality, then he can't give up on recovering his memory. He decides to stay close to the main story in any way possible, and after he recovers his lost memories and finds the point of contact with Misgain, he will survive. He says he is willing to become the biggest villain if that's what it takes to make that happen. If he thinks about it, not much has changed compared to his reality. 2 years ago, when he lost his memory, he was a terminally ill patient to begin with. There was a countdown ticking down toward his death every second, and he spent his time in fear, wondering when he would die. The only thing that has changed is the backdrop, but it changed to a world he was quite familiar with. The next morning, while walking, he feels his body is like a sunfish. Suddenly, he is hit by a girl who sits down then. She apologizes as if this was her mistake. When he sees her, he says this brown hair with light golden brown eyes, this girl is Rona. He says he will let her off the hook. This once, however, if she makes such a mistake again, he will not forgive her. She says, of course, she will remember this. When she asks him where he is going to this early in the morning, he says to the training hall. Rona and her fellows are surprised to hear this. Rona also joins him towards the training hall. He makes a plan to survive first. After standing on death's door, he is even more certain. He does not want to die yet. Firstly, to survive, he has to quickly adjust to the circumstances he has found himself in. As a pro who has finished this game 27 times, he does not only know all of the game's hidden secrets. He also tells her the Inner Lunatic is the demonic and the divine. Further, it is a game where conflict with the Empire is the main focus and has numerous fandoms around the world. The special thing about the inner lunatic is that one has various paths of growth with countless combinations of characteristics. Although there are many low-rank characteristics, rare and common ones can be chosen. There are also genius characteristics, only one of which can be applied in practice. Genius characteristics make it easy to reach the peak of the applicable field. He further says he has picked up just 2. This is because there is something called a characteristic penalty in this game. He has picked up the sword and martial arts genius. It is said that proficiency in the use of swords and other cold weapons helps to reach the peak of basic martial arts, while mana genius increases the sensitivity to magic and helps to achieve maximum efficiency when circulating mana. He says there are a lot of even more useful things too. Eyes of Discernment allows one to view the status windows of other characters through the protagonist's benefit, while Master of Acting corrects one's acting skills. Another skill steal mentality will also keep him trembling in combat or dangerous situations. He knows the problem lies in the negative characters, although terminally ill is the most concerning. Soon they reach the training hall. When they enter, firstly, the curse of languishment, a strong congenital curse of languishment, is placed on the player's body. The growth rate is halved, and the player is twice as vulnerable to enemies' debuffs. After that, he starts doing sword practice, but a few moments later, he concludes that he is just fucked. He falls and says he is the person who could not swing the sword even 10 times. As expected, there are a lot of well-maintained weapons. That is because the foundation of the Reinharber family lies within the sword. The things that distinguished the Reinharber family and propelled them to fame, among various powerful noble families, are their proficiency in the sword and the darkness attribute. The reason why they earned this fame is because of the sword art that infuses their swords with the power of darkness and allows them to easily slice their enemies. And because of their leader's sword, the weapon is called the Dark Sword of Force. This sword was given only to those who were to become the next family head. Yoo Chan, who is known as Nox von Reinharber, thinks there are a lot of advantages to being a part of this Reinharber family. For example, there is money, and money is the best reward as expected. The Reinharber family is the best in this world. They have so much money that it rots. They can give large amounts of money to their trash youngest son, Nox. Nox von knows that Nox's father probably would not care if Nox spent money however he wanted. When he is informed about the history of the Reinharber family, he comes to know the reason for this character as Nox. He is going to play the character of a reputable family's trash youngest son, Nox. His character is clear. A few minutes earlier, when Rona tells him that she has prepared the wooden sword, a towel, and water, he asks her to go and bring some items for him. He also asks her not to say anything and just get it for him. After she is gone, he says he does not know how good Rona is at running errands, but if she does things quickly, she can bring it tomorrow. So after practice, when he is taking tea, he thinks up till now Rona has done her task, but he cannot find any way to solve the problem of his curse and low vitality. Suddenly, a man named Head Butler Rotwell Behernerock arrives and pays Nox his greetings. Nox, now Butler Rotwell, is the Reinharber family's true authority, and someone with whom he, the trash youngest son, can't mess. He is the butler and the right-hand man of the family head and Nox's father Theo von Reinharber. That is who Rotwell is. Nox says someone difficult to deal with appeared so quickly. Under normal conditions, he would not care about the trash youngest son, but now why did he come to him? So when he asks the reason for his arrival here, Rotwell says he has been tasked by the family head to bring him this news that he should participate in tonight's dinner. Nox smiles as he just transmigrated, so he knows nothing. He then asks Rotwell to tell the family head that Nox is not willing to attend the dinner. He also asks why the youngest son is suddenly called for dinner. Rotwell informs the young miss from the Steelener family has visited. She came to receive night lessons. If the young master does not participate, the family head will be very angry. Rotwell also observes that the young master is a bit weird today. He normally did not like to swing a sword, but today he is walking around the drill hall. When he asks Nox the reason for this changed behavior, Nox becomes furious and says how dare a mere butler like him pry into his master's business. Butler apologizes and says he will correct himself. When Nox moves out, he thinks he will have to report this to the family head. On the other side, Nox is worried as he was not expecting this sort of event would pop up. Who knows what would happen if they found out he is transmigrated? After thinking a lot about it, he finally joins the family for dinner. When he comes there, his twin brothers, Hatch and Alan, provoke him and say he is running in the environment. They say he had beaten up a maid and his butler earlier. Then Talia von Stielener arrives there along with Theo Reinharber and says hello. Theo Reinharber says the young miss of the Stielener family has come to their home to briefly take night lessons. He orders everyone to welcome her warmly. Nox observes her and notices that she is also the inner lunatic side character, the character who condemns the antagonist Nox. That means she is a person who will stab him in the chest in the future, he assumes. Theo Reinharber sees Nox is also here today, so he says since everyone is here, so start the meal. One of Nox's brothers asks his father to make a decision but who will be admitted to a Lydian academy and become the family's new talent. Theo admits definitely the time to do that has come. A Lydian academy is the most important place in the Inner Lunatic. Because of Inner Lunatics, it depicts a story of cadets fighting demons through various unexpected situations in the academy. Nox is thinking that he has to get admitted. As long as it does not affect the story of the game, he needs to gather his comrades. Then Theo speaks and says all of them are already aware, but only 3 tickets are allotted to each family for a Lydian academy admission. The reason for that is to guard the academy against the power of nobles. He says he used 2 for his first and second sons, so the Reinharber family only has 1 ticket left. When he says that he will choose who will go according to his family's tradition, Nox says he is trying to tell them that he will pick one person by letting them brothers fight each other. Theo did not expect Nox to speak up first. He says that is right, and the date will be set in a month. He will decide on who will be admitted after he sees them spar at the training grounds. Patch and Alan say if Nox has thoughts about giving up, it will do him good to speak up and say it now. They say that he is so weak and he has never held a sword before, so there is no chance of him winning over them. While Nox continues drinking as he does not intend to listen to their ridiculous notions. He just says that he will be the one who will be admitted to the Lydian Academy. Thalia, who is listening to their conversation, says it seems their youngest seems to be very confident. Later on, when Rotwell tells the earlier incident to Theo Reinharber, Theo says from his report, it is clear that Nox's behavior has changed all of a sudden. He says he would not have believed this report if he had not seen it for himself. He somehow had a change of heart. It shows he is not being possessed by a demon. He asks Rotwell to continue keeping his eyes on Nox. The next day, when Nox comes to the training hall, all the servants are surprised to see that their youngest lord has come out to the training grounds again. He starts running in the ground because his biggest problem is his physical strength. He knows the activation condition for sword and martial arts genius is to achieve a 4 in physical strength. Unless one's stamina is at its lowest like Nox's, they would have started with everything already open. But he is under the curse of languishment. He needs to improve his stamina by 19 in a month. The curse of languishment reduces one's physical growth by half. His terminally ill characteristic is also cutting down the pace of his physical growth by half. As a result, he has to work 4 times harder than others. Then Rona arrives there and says she has brought the items he asked for yesterday. He thinks she is more resourceful than he thought. At least she is of use now. The items she has brought are a 3-headed serpent's poison, a fairy's spring water, a golem's core, and a rapid physical growth scroll. He is sure that he has no problem with these items as he is a pro at using old-fashioned shortcuts. Rona asks why he needs these items, as these are all either poisonous, tricky to use, or medications that people would usually avoid. He says people avoid it since they do not know how to use it. He then drinks the bottle of poison, and his status window tells him as he has taken the 3-headed serpent's poison, his stamina will temporarily increase by 1/5. Then he starts eating the core of the golem, and the status window informs as he has eaten the golem's core that he will slowly fall into a state of petrification. The hidden piece has been revealed. The 3-headed serpent's poison is reacting to the golem's core. He says this is good, so he just has to keep this going. Originally, the golem's core could temporarily petrify humans to amplify their defenses. It is an item that is used to make other artificial golems. But if it is used with the 3-headed serpent's poison, a special effect will be activated, the 3-headed serpent's poison will be diluted, and the negative characteristics curse of languishment will disappear. Nox is happy that the effect of the curse will disappear and says there are more hidden pieces to uncover.
He then uses the fairy's spring water on his body. The fairy's spring water is reacting to the golem's core. The effects of the golem's core have disappeared.
He says this is an interesting feeling. He is given the blessed growth characteristic. The blessed growth will double the user's stat growth rate until stamina reaches 5. Then he uses the last item, Rapid Physical Growth Scroll, which increases his stamina growth rate by 100%. He finally has gotten rid of the curse, and with blessed growth, he offset the 50% physical growth penalty of determinally ill. And as he even used the scroll as a result, he will be progressing twice as fast as before. After this, he again starts running in the ground. On the other side, Talia is still pondering how this weak punk agrees to contend against his brothers. Her maid Emma asks her not to belittle the youngest son of the Reinharber family. Thalia, who is seeing him through the window, says he is not even holding a sword during the practice, he is just running around ignorantly. Even the soldiers of the Reinharber offered to teach him swordsmanship, but he rejected them all. He will just end up getting beaten up in a month. She then tells Emma that she will be away for a bit and moves out. She comes into the training ground and introduces herself to Nox. He asks why she is here and tells her that he has already heard her name. She assumes he is just shocked to see her beautiful face. She says as he is just running around in the ground, how he would think to win against his brothers. She says she can help him a bit in this regard. But he refuses and says he is not interested, so she can leave now. She is furious over his attitude and asks how he could do this, as she is here to just help him. Nox observes her and comes to know that she has some crazy talent by the looks of it. Considering that the average adult male's stamina is only 4, her stamina is quite impressive. Although she does not have as much potential as the 3 sword emperors or the 4 sages of the continent, she has enough talent to reach the level just below them. She is talented enough to eventually kill a demon or two, as she has a fire attribute. He knows the magic power of the flame attribute used by Thalia will awaken as the white flame in the future and incinerate Nox, who will have become a demon, to death. He thinks if he makes Thalia his ally Mal, a lot of future stories will get tangled up. So he needs to stay close to the main story to avoid death. 1 month later, Hatch and Alan appreciate Talia and say she is a quick learner, she has talent befitting the Steelener family. Meanwhile, she still thinks will she be able to become a knight. From ancient times, a knight is an individual unmoved by greed, living frugally with their sole purpose being to sacrifice themselves in the name of justice. In addition to that mindset, it is only possible to become a knight after learning numerous sword arts and techniques. She thinks that with just physical exercise, Nox is going to defeat his brothers who have been training all their life. She is sure that he will never beat his brothers. The next day, people are gathered to see the fight among brothers. Theo's first wife, Priscilla, also comes to witness the competition. Soon it is announced that the competition over the right to be admitted into the Elydian Academy. He then asks to start the fight. Theo Reinharber asks Rotwell his opinion about what will happen. Rotwell says if they witness what they have often seen before, then naturally young Master Alan will win. Theo agrees and says he also thinks the same. Rotwell wonders if the family head anticipates a different result. Although young Master Nox has indeed changed, Rotwell does not get the impression that he will win. He says that is outrageous and impossible. He remembers once he too walked the path of a knight, fighting by the family head's side. The sword is sometimes intricate, but at other times the simplest thing in the world. He knows only there is one thing that can turn everything upside down and cause a stronger person to eventually kneel, and this is genius, as it implies an overwhelming talent. But young Master Nox is not born with that sort of talent, however, it is like he has 0 potential. Before the match begins, Alan asks Nox to give up now and says even if he is the disgrace of their family, he is still his younger brother, so he can't hit him too hard. But when Nox refuses to give up, then it is announced that with the right of admittance into the Elydian Academy at stake, the sparring match will formally begin between Nox von Reinharber and Alan von Reinharber. The two must accept the results of the spar and never dispute them. Nox becomes nervous as he fears if he loses here, it is all over. From regaining his memory to finding out who sent him the letter, albeit with a year of postponement, his life will come to an end. Then the fight starts, and Nox blocks the attacks very well initially. The one truth of this damn game called Inner Lunatic is that if Nox loses here, he will have to let everything go. But if he wins here, he feels like he will be able to get everything under his grasp. Priscilla, who is also watching them, thinks it looks like she was needlessly worried after hearing that the youngest had changed. In the end, the last child who enters the Elydian Academy from the Reinharber family will be her son. Alan is continuously attacking Nox with his swords. Nox is having difficulty handling all this. Theo also says he was looking forward to it because he had heard he had changed in the end. Is this the best he can do? Rotwell says if they let this fight go on, young Master Nox will need a long time to recover. Alan and Hatch, their aptitude is good, but not to the point that they are like an uncut gem compared to Garen, the eldest. Their skills are sorely lacking. The rule of the might be the black sword. He brings everything before his feet and wrings his opponents to their knees with his overwhelming armed might. Theo asks to stop the match, but then Nox's sword and martial arts genius characteristics have been activated. Alan is surprised to see him fighting with such a strong passion. Nox knows although it is hard to utilize this skill to its full potential, as long as his characteristics are activated, it is decided that he is the winner of this fight. Soon Alan's sword drops, and he sits down. Nox thinks even so, he must not let his guard down. The skill only lasts for 5 minutes. He has to end it somehow within that time. He tells Alan that he has been going easy on him until now, but he can't any longer because he is bored. So it is best to finish this as quickly as possible. He asks both Alan and Hatch to come at him at once together. He requests his father to allow him to fight both of his brothers at the same time. Theo observes his spirit has changed. It looks like there is something that he has hidden. It will be worth watching it a little more, so he says he will allow the 2-on-1 spar. Meanwhile, Hatch and Alan become so angry that how Nox dares to humiliate them in front of father. They ask him to be prepared and then attack together. But he dodged their attacks very well and instead attacked back. Everyone is surprised to see that the disgrace of the family has changed this much. He continues attacking them. When the time duration of his genius time stream is over, the fight is almost over. The young Master Nox is declared as the victor of the fight. After that, Nox leaves the hall, and Talia decides to catch him right now. After coming back, Nox sees blood on his hand. He thinks it looks like he has overdone it a bit with the skills time. The genius time stream skill has one grave drawback. If it is used past its time limit, then the user will be caught in a rebound debuff state. The status window tells the player's lifespan has been reduced by 2 days and 17 hours due to the recoil of the genius time stream skill. This skill permanently takes one's vitality and is the most debuff that makes it easy for the user to fall sick. Nox says as he is already a terminally ill patient. It is a relief that the rebound did not occur in front of others. If he had been caught by even another person his admission to the academy would have been cancelled. But then suddenly, Talia arrives and sees his hand. She asks if he got hurt during the spar earlier. He says, "Damn it, this is what he was trying to hide from others." She says she may have misunderstood him, but also admires him as he was able to beat his brothers in a spar with that ruined body. In the past month that she had seen him, not once did Nox hold a sword in his hands. On the first day, it just ended with him swinging a wooden sword several times with a clumsy posture. But for that sort of person to be able to win, that was the domain of the talented. She thinks she needs to ask just how he was able to flourish his talent and how he was able to improve his skills. But after all of the sparring was over, the figure of him standing alone. She is worried about his fragile look. She thinks Nox was not a lout, as the rumors had said. He just worked hard to win any way he could. Suddenly, Nox starts coughing. She comes forward and asks if he is all right. He stops her from coming near to him and asks not to touch his body. She says sorry and says that from what she has heard, he was born naturally weak, and it was because of that he was only doing stamina training. She is sorry for the misunderstanding. She did not know he was that serious about the sword. She also says he must have unknowingly made a mistake acting like a lout too. As Emma said, anyone can make that sort of mistake. Meanwhile, Nox is thinking about the ways to react to this as she is earnest like he saw in the game. Even if she is a child who has chivalrous characteristics, she is the child of a hard-nosed, reputable duchy. It would not have been easy for her to acknowledge her mistake to someone else. He then speaks up and says if she thinks that then he would like it, and asks her not to tell anyone that he has a bloody nose as he won't have to worry about this matter leaking. She says of course she won't tell anyone.
Then he asks her to keep her promise and goes back. On the other side, Theo says his predictions may have been correct. Rotwell says he still does not understand why at first Nox was just staying still, getting hit. But he also admits that at this age of the young master of all time in his age group, he is the best. Theo says he also thinks that way, and he is not sure why he feels this, but he does believe that young child Nox is hiding even more of his talent. He asks Rotwell to keep an eye out on the youngest's every move, but only watch what he does. He wonders if the youngest has the talent to inherit the might of the Black Sword. He says he does not have much time now, so tells Rotwell that his role is much more important now. Rotwell says he will do his best. Meanwhile, Nox thinks that he has run for 1 month straight just to raise his stamina to 2, but the place he needs to invest in is the status window. He knows the value of the luck stats is much higher than anything else in Inner Lunatic. His status window informs when he is maxed out on luck. There is a 95% chance of getting intermediate or higher grades. He is allowed to select a confirmation ticket out of 3. Gray tickets are for those below low grade, silver for intermediate grade, and gold for higher grade. He sees there is a rainbow in the case of the highest grade. He requests the gold ticket, and when he gets it, the status window tells him the grade is being determined. So he is congratulated on gaining the high-grade characteristic, Power of the Supreme. He is so happy about this as he can't believe he picked this. He knows this is a god-tier item. He still can't believe a debuff skill showed up. He says there are more rewards left for him. The skill that he will be getting here has already been determined. One of the hidden pieces that can be earned from the Reinharber family. To get that into his hands, he needs that skill. He knows Theo will soon call the brothers in the residence. It will be used then. He thinks it is soon time for Green to return to the residence. Green von Reinharber is the second of the Reinharber family. It's been a while since the Elydian Academy graduation, and to perform his duties as a knight, he should be in the middle of his trip. From the hidden piece to Green, he has no time to rest, says Nox. He knows the only thing that is a relief at least is that he won't have to worry about Thalia Mel. She is not the type of character that'd break a promise, and there is no reason for her to approach him again either. But later at night, she again comes and asks him to tell her what she has to do to become strong quickly like that. She requests to teach her how to become stronger. He says while was training for the whole month, he knows she snooped around and saw everything. He thinks Talia is a character who wants to be recognized by her sister. He says before she asks him that or even thinks about how to train, she should think about the ability she has. He advises her not to compare herself to others needlessly. Then he leaves the place. After coming outside, he hopes she won't chase him around. For a girl who might end up killing him, there is no need to show her how he gets the hidden piece, he thinks. Then he reaches the place which is one of the top 3 places in the continent where they raise famous horses. Theo called them all there when everyone reached there. He says today they are all going to pick a horse that they will ride for their whole life. Nox says as he thinks the time has come. In Inner Lunatic, not only in the Reinharber family, horse is the most scared animal on the whole continent. If one plans to become a knight or a mage, one has to choose one in their childhood. It is an animal that they will use as a lifelong companion. The Elydian Academy also teaches horseback riding separately. There are many great battles in the second half of the game, so once the horse dies, one has to raise it from the start. Moreover, teleportation magic is very expensive. Nox thinks that is inconvenient, as horses are a really important transportation method, so he has to pick the best horse. Theo asks Nox to pick a horse first, as he is the winner of the competition. Theo looks forward to his youngest son's choice. Nox says all the horses are good, but soon he finds the one he is searching for. When he tells his father about his choice, Theo says he will give him one more chance. Nox thinks his father is giving him another chance. That means in everyone's eyes, his choice is a failure. However, his skill of eye discernment shows the stats of the designated target. His rank is higher grade. Summon beasts are divided into ranks. As they grow, one can try to develop them into higher ranks. In other words, that means that he can at least aim for this horse to reach the highest level. On top of that, the breed is obsidian. They have the meaning of backstone, and they are the most precious of all breeds. He thinks if they had known the breed, the master would have taken it for himself. Even though currently, the horse is not that good looking because it is still weak. Then he tells his father that he will not change his decision and he will take this horse. He says he can save him with his knowledge. Theo is surprised by his choice and thinks he may have selected a weak horse just like similar to himself. In the end, he is just a weak kid who's drawn to such feelings of affection. Theo becomes disappointed and says he hopes Nox will not regret his choice. Then Rotwell asks him to decide a name for his horse. Nox says he has chosen his horse's name Carl. Carl is the name he used every time he cleared Inner Lunatic. It is a name that means a lot to him. Then he brings that horse with him to his room. He says since he can't let anybody see what he will be doing from now on, he has brought him into his room. Then Rona arrives there and is surprised to see the horse is on the bed. He orders her to take care of his horse as he is a sick kid. She agrees and says she will look after this horse. 3 days later, Rona tells him Carl is dead. He says she is crying badly. He knows she did look after Carl quite sincerely. He knew from the start that this would happen, and Carl could not be saved. He then asks her to stop crying and says he needs to focus, but her crying is distracting. He says Carl will come back and stand aside with him again. Rona thinks there is something wrong with the young master's head. Nox brings out that confirmation ticket and says if he pumps some mana into this scroll, then Carl will be saved. She is surprised to see him using mana. He asks her if she is loud again, and then he will kill Carl twice. It will be because of her. He asks her to stay quiet as he needs to concentrate. Forget being able to wield mana, he can't even enlighten the mana-sensing genius characteristic. In the Empire, it is not permitted to wield mana under the age of 15 without being a member of the Imperial family. Thanks to this rule, children of the Imperial family have magic skills. They are several times better than the students who come to know mana later on. He says all he can do is just pour his mana like a waterfall. He can feel a weak energy beneath his fingertips, as he can use a confirmation ticket only one time, so there is no chance to make any mistakes. As the magic he will be starting now is a black magic. Through this, the designated target, Carl, can become undead. The undead in the Inner Lunatic has two main characteristics. The first, they are beings that are brought back through black magic and dark mana. Second, just because they are brought back does not mean that they are not devoid of an ego. Rather, they are born again as stronger existences. On top of that, they show unconditional loyalty towards their owner. The problem is that there is only one family that can bring back corpses as undead. It is the renowned dark family, the Marbas family. Reinharber is also a renowned dark family, but unlike the Reinhabers, who are knights, the Marbas are a family of black mages who generally control the undead. Nox has only a one-time skill option. The thing that he will acquire from it is Necronomicon, nicknamed the Book of the Killer. While doing all this magic, blood starts coming out of his mouth. Rona becomes frightened to see this, but he continues and soon says his mana is no longer. But his skill has been used successfully. Carl has been reborn as an undead. He becomes happy that his skill worked. He then tells Carl that from henceforth he is Carl's master. A few days later, he comes to the forest at night. He feels the road is not changed much in comparison when it is a game. That is a relief. He needs to acquire the second hidden piece of the Reinharber family. There he sees a paper notice hung with a tree. This notice tells this is a forest of missing children. So little children must not go in, because if they do, they will lose their way and die. When he reads this, he says he does not want to die twice. Despite all fears, he enters the forest of missing children. He is being informed that if he fails to clear this quest, he will die in this place, within the Reinharber territory, to a forest that is off limits. Because of the darkness and the fog, no matter how good of a ranger of Pathfinder 1 is, it is a place where it is not easy to find the way. As its name implies, it is a place where anyone can become like a missing child who has lost their way. However, there is also another meaning for the game in its name, and it is that even if someone is an adult who takes down a demonic beast, he won't be able to get any sort of artifact from it. Nox knows, moreover, a system where the difficulty level of going up against a demonic beast increases dramatically for adults. He wonders how many times he has died trying to find an attack method that fits its name. In that sense, the difficulty of the Forest of Missing Children is at least about 2.5 stars. He says when he played it, he worked hard to conquer it without knowing what sort of item would come out, but looking at it now, it is an item that does fit well with a terminally ill characteristic. He knows the main key to conquering the forest of the missing children is the direction of the fog. On the other side, Talia still can't believe that her good looks did not work. Emma begs her that she must stop following around young Nox. She says if Talia keeps on doing that, then she will be criticized as well. Talia says she will make sure Talia is not fired from her family. But Emma says she has misunderstood her. This is not what she means. Emma says if it was not for Lady Chell, then Lady Talia's a talent that would have already been respected as the next head. She also wonders why Talia is impatient because she feels inferior to her older sister. Later, Talia also comes to the forest while following him. When Nox sees her there, he asks why she is there. But then suddenly, a gray wolf appears there. He says he did not know that this forest is the gray wolf's habitat, and he only has a dagger right now. So he throws a dagger toward the wolf, and within a few moments, he becomes successful in dealing with it. Talia says this is amazing, and she also dears it is just one wolf, but she can't believe he's taken care of it this neatly. After dealing with the wolf, he again asks her why she is here. She says she is just doing a night stroll. He asks her to speak properly, or otherwise he is going to leave her behind. But she stops him and says it is not like she was trying to follow him, but he suddenly had an incredible growth, so she followed him around in hopes that she could also be like that. And when she looked out the window of night, he was there. So she thought he was going somewhere. So she followed him and then reached a forest. Nox thinks he is certain about 3 things. Talia overvalues him beyond his imagination and does not have any ill feelings towards him. She is a child who does not know that the world is a dangerous place to the extent that she would follow others in the middle of the night. So he can't just leave her here and go, as she is one of the core characters. He then asks her to follow him now. He tells her that he is not helping her. He is just solving a problem so that an annoying incident does not occur to his family. She thanks him for taking care of her. Then many gray wolves also appear there. He tells her that she will be in the way when she sees his sword. Although there are some unexpected variables, he needs to focus again. This place is before the scenario starts. Since it is an area within the prologue, there won't be any boss monsters. But an elite monster 1 rank below the boss monster will appear. The elite wolf is the evolved form of that gray wolf that he cut down just now. But just knowing who his enemy would be does not mean that things will go smoothly for him. He believes there are times when one ought to realize that one may have been driven into a corner. He remembers times like this when he was Yoo Chan and was paying inner lunatic. When he uses powers to attack wolves, Talia says she is sure that he has not revealed his full power yet. His sword technique was even more amazing when he was fighting his brothers. She feels Nox thinks she is still very weak. Nox tells her finally the elite gray wolf is here. Meanwhile, some guards arrive in the forest in search of them. They see here are 2 tracks of small footsteps. It seems they are the young master's and Lady Talia's footprints. They think the young master went into the missing child's forest. Emma is also worried about Talia. She says they must go and report the Reinharber family. But a person asks her not to be foolish, as that is not impossible. When Rotwell asks the reason why not inform Nox's father, that person says it is because it is a forest that not even Reinharber managed to clear yet. Missing Children's Forest is ranked one of the highest within the Reinharber family. While the Reinharber family is known to be the strongest dark family in the south, the fact that there is still a forest that they are not able to clear is basically like saying that they are incompetent. Of course, the fact that only children who have not become adults can enter the forest, and the forest can only be cleared successfully by children, has not been made known to them yet. Rotwell wonders why the young master entered the forest. He does not think Nox was bewitched by a mind-controlling monster. Looking at these tracks, he moved with care. There are no traces of anyone getting past the strongest mana barrier of this estate too. This means that young Master Nox went into the forest intentionally, and Rotwell thinks deeply. He further says he was wrong, and he can no longer refuse to admit that he is not the weak young Master Nox from before. There is only one way for the 2 of them to return. The young master has to use his wisdom and find their way out of the forest. Emma starts crying as she blames herself and says she is the one who caused the young miss to die. While inside the forest, Nox observes she has not lost her concentration despite being scared. He asks her not to attack unnecessarily, she might get hurt. So she just stays out of this and saves her strength and uses it to run away if she gets attacked. He knows killing an elite wolf is not that dangerous. He just wants Talia to remain vigilant and be able to react to her surroundings. It seems she has learned well, although she is not at the level where he can teach her to cover him back yet. Then his skill, the Hour of the Genius, has been activated. He says for now he will use this skill and kill it in one go. He comes forward to deal with gray wolves then and asks Talia to help him too. He asks her to get away from him, since she will get in the way when he swings the sword. She then helps him in dealing with the wolves. Wolves are also attacking furiously. One of them hurts Nox. After some time, she asks him if he is all right as he is being attacked by a wolf. He still can't believe she helped him. He says this is not the time to be having such idle thoughts. She says that is a relief that he is fine now. They both concentrate on wolves. He says the elite gray wolf is a lot shrewder than in the game. He thinks he is disconcerted. He should have realized it from the moment those pesky mob monsters were controlled. Who knew it would even take advantage of the terrain features? For now, he decides to have to start by defending. He thinks if it could make use of his weak spot that forms, then his side could also make use of its weak spot as well. And the person that can make such a variable is not he. He is still attacking the gray wolf, and soon he kills it. Talia rushes towards him and asks if he is all right. He says there is no need to worry, it is just a little scratch, but it is fine. She says she is glad he is okay everywhere else. Suddenly, he heard a roar of an unknown kind and asked her if is there any monster left. Talia becomes frightened at once and comes close to him. She tells him there is a spider. He says if something like a spider is going to scare her, then she could not have followed him into the forest. He says she definitely won't be able to become a knight. He assumes she pulled her weight. She also helped him earlier to save him, so he is obliged to her. But he could not say it because she suddenly screamed. He then says now they just need to get out of this forest. Meanwhile, Emma is still crying as she thinks she is the one who killed the young miss. The disappearance of Miss Talia will create a problem between both families. Since a lot of children in this area go missing in the missing child's forest, some people secretly say that the Reinharber family is incompetent. Suddenly, a few guards ask Rotwell to look towards the forest. The fog of the forest is being lifted. They are surprised to see that the child's missing forest has been cleared. Emma says for sure it is a fact that mana is being lifted. Rotwell also says it means that the forest has been cleared. The only possibility that they were thinking of has turned into reality. They see the young master coming out of the forest along with Emma. They say to think he'd clear the forest. It is so hard to believe. Rotwell says he can't help but smile only. He is certain now that the hierarchy of the descendants within the Reinharber family is about to experience great turmoil. After coming out, Nox thinks about why everyone is gathered here. Emma rushes towards Talia and hugs her. She tells them they are so worried about her. The people from the family were worried about her disappearance too, young master, says Rotwell. But Nox says he can't believe the family is worried over a good for nothing like him. He thinks the reputation of his family as a dark family is about to go down. Emma says she will tell Talia about the 71 rules of the Stillreiner family again, so please follow her from now on. She says the patriarch will be teaching her the rules personally. She then thanks young Master Nox for protecting their young miss. After coming to his room, Nox says that is over for now. It was unexpected for him that Rotwell was waiting outside the forest with the knights. The good thing is that he has obtained the hidden piece, which is a new artifact. This artifact is an accessory, the Black Flame Ring. Only those who can use dark mana can equip it. The special effect about it is when one defeats a target while equipping it, he will steal a very small amount of their life force and turn it into his own. The higher the rank of the target defeated, the more life force he will steal. The only artifact that can steal someone else's life force is this Black Flame Ring. He knows that having this ring does not mean he will have a longer life. One's life can't be extended infinitely. And considering that only a very small amount of force can be stolen, it won't be that easy to overcome the terminal illness. As long as he can struggle and progress, that is way better than a life that is hopeless on the verge of death. He can feel his life force and mana raising. Soon Rona arrives in his room. He asks her to play the arm whistle again. She says if she wins again this time round, he will have to increase her salary. He says all right, but if she loses, then 20% of her salary will be deducted. Then they play the game, and finally, he wins the game. She says he must think it is not befitting of a reputable family's son to reduce the salary of a servant's poor pittance by 20%. Nox says yes, that is all right, but he is the rumored good for nothing of the Reinharber family, as per the rumors of someone, so he has decided not to care about trivial things like honor. But later, he says that he will cancel the reduction of her salary. In return, she must go bring him some ice and a wet towel. He says he will be satisfied with getting the ring for now. He needs to get some rest. Later, one day he says it's been 6 months since he got the 2 hidden pieces, Carl and the black flame ring. But there has not been a chance to use them. He is being informed that he has been grounded. He says it is not like he got into any trouble. He even cleared the missing child's forest. He can't believe he is grounded when they should be rewarding him instead. He tells Rona all of this, and she agrees but says she is a maid who belongs to the family, and her salary will be reduced if she speaks poorly of the patriarch. He says that he swears upon his hand that her salary will be reduced if she does not act to his preferences. He says he has been working hard on adapting to this life and living a pretty productive life while watching Carl's growth. He can't carry on like this. His life is being shortened even now. Then the system informs him that the remaining life he has left due to terminal illness is 147 days. He says this darn system is more interested in his life than he is. He decides to go to his father and get permission to go out somehow. Then Rotwell arrives and tells him that the patriarch has summoned him. Meanwhile, Theo remembers in a past life, the night of slaughter, the demons that were swarming there, the humans that were caught up in them, and the night of slaughter. It was like a disaster. Theo thinks someday one of his sons will probably learn the supreme black sword. He can't rely on probabilities, he needs certain talent, because one of them will have to kill him. Then Rotwell arrives and informs him that the young master will soon be here. Theo says ask him to arrive quickly, he is late. The missing child's forest is a place that not even he knows how to clear. To think Nox was able to clear the place, it would be appropriate to reward him. He says the reason he is late in rewarding him is because of the strong objections of the family's vassals. He gets the report after a complete investigation. The vassals did not believe that Nox, who was a good-for-nothing, had changed and began an investigation to check if Nox cleared the forest. Theo thinks he cannot even ignore the opinions of his family's vassals, so the investigation is a necessary process. Then Nox comes there and pays his respect. Theo says he is sure that Nox knows already that his actions were wrong. But as a patriarch, it is his job to give credit when credit is due, even if the credit belongs to a good-for-nothing. So he has summoned him here to discuss his rewards. When Nox says he has a request, Theo says he can only fulfill just one request of him, no matter what it is. Nox says that Mean's father will give him whatever he demands. Even he, who has played tons of hours on Inner Lunatic, is seeing Theo give a reward for the first time. Theo is usually authoritative and stern though. Nox feels like someone just shot him in the head. No, he guesses it is more like someone just slashed him from behind. Then he again confirms would his father will give him anything. Theo says yes, he will give him anything as the patriarch of Reinharber. But in the case that his request is too ridiculous, his evaluation of him will change, so he trusts that Nox won't do something that foolish. Nox says please give him some time to think this over. Theo agrees and says now he will permit him to leave the estate. But he is not allowed to get into trouble like he did previously. He must always bear in mind that he is of the Reinharber family. The next day, they gather to see off the Talia and his people. Talia tells Nox that they will meet at Eldian Academy the next time they meet. When she asks okay, Nox does not respond to her. Then Theo interferes and says he should answer what a lady asks him questions. So Nox says that is possible for her, will become a full-fledged knight before that. She agrees and says she will return after becoming a full-fledged knight, so he must prepare his head for her. Then Emma says thanks to everyone for everything, especially young Master Nox for saving Lady Talia. After they are gone, he thinks he feels like he is slowly getting used to this weird life. He does not know the exact reason, but he is kind of enjoying it. A few days later, Rona says, by the way, he needs to get a new maid and new servants. Nox starts thinking about it. Then Rotwell arrives there and pays his greetings. He then informs Nox that Eldian Academy has sent a maid in training to assist him. From today onwards, she will be serving him, so she must come to introduce herself, says that new maid. She says her name is Jitri de la Villa and says she will do her very best to support him. Nox also gives his introduction to her. He observes her with his hidden skills and comes to know that she has arrived here to monitor him based on the orders of Theo von Reinharber. A few days later, when his status window informs him that the remaining life he has left due to terminal illness is 140 days, he believes that when the time is limited, it feels like it goes so darn fast. The only good thing here would be that he is growing pretty fast despite having such a severe penalty. He knows that soon he will be admitted into the Eldian Academy. Rona says that after 2 months now, he will finally start to attend the Eldian Academy. She asks him if he feels nervous or not. He says it seems that she is happy about the fact that he will be leaving this place for the academy. But she refuses and says she is already starting to miss him. He stops her from overacting and says he is not going to reduce her salary. He knows within the next 2 months, if he does not increase his stats by even a little, he definitely won't be able to survive inside the academy. Eldian is the Empire's best academy, and in it, monstrously strong cadets from all over the country gather. After surviving that place and entering the main story, he must play the role of the villain, Nox von Reinharber, as well. He says everything is so tough. He knew that they wouldn't let him leave this place comfortably. Theo von Reinharber is one of the biggest villains and one of the strongest beings in the world. When wondering about how he rose to his current position, many ask if it was from his swordsmanship alone. He was so skilled that few doubt that that's the case. However, the main reason that Theo was able to take his place at the top of the Reinharber family was that he was suspicious of everything and everyone that was around him. Before her appointment, he had told Jitri de la Villa that he had great expectations for her this time. He heard that she got pushed back in the line of succession within the Lavilla family. So if he performs well this time, the Reinharber family will spare no efforts to support her in the succession, he told her. She said she would assist young Master Nox with all her heart. She will be monitoring him strictly and reporting every single thing to Theo Reinharber. Later at night, while lying on his bed, Nox thinks she is a spy. Theo probably wanted to confirm whether the person within him is Nox or not, he assumes. Demon possession is something that happens quite frequently among inner lunatics, and Nox is a character who had his body stolen by the number demon Ball in the original storyline. Then he says, well, it is all right, as long as Theo does not find out who he is, nothing is dangerous for him, but Jitri is the problem only. While she is not involved in the main storyline, it would be a waste to throw her away like this. Originally, she was supposed to become the next head of the Lavilla family, but her father and mother were killed by her uncle, and she lost her position as the next head of the family. What happened next is obvious. In the end, she became a maid of the Reinharber family and managed to escape from her family. She looks cheerful on the outside and is always smiling, but the inside of her is jaded and rotten. She is a character that is on the verge of breaking. And so her last decision would be that before the first part of the main story starts, she'd commit suicide. Nox thinks about what should he do now. He is also thinking about creating a change to the storyline by saving someone who ought to be dead. He knows despite knowing that doing that would mean he put a nose onto his neck. The next day, he informs both Rona and Jitri that from onwards they all will be hunting monsters within the forest in the territory. Both of them will follow him and help him. Rona becomes terrified on hearing about hunting monsters and says she will be absent because she is sick, but Jitri says she understood what he said. Nox knows it is normal for a maid to be scared of hunting monsters. It is a ridiculous request after all, he admits. Then he tells Rona that she has taken all of her sick leaves, so she is not allowed to take a sick leave today. If she does not follow what he says, then he will reduce her salary. Jitri asks him if may she inform Sir Rodwell that they will be leaving the estate. He allows her as he thinks his top priority for now is to increase his lifespan. Since he is not free to go anywhere, so he must not do anything that would make Theo angry. Later, when he leaves to hunt monsters on horse, Theo observes him through the window. A few days later, the missing child's forest looks like a normal forest after it was cleared. He continues hunting for more gray wolves. After killing them, he steals a very small amount of their life force. His status window tells him he has taken 2 hours of his life just by killing one gray wolf. Then, after killing many more wolves, he thinks this could be considered quite a successful hunt. Jitri asks him if he is not tired yet, as it has been 1 hour since he started the hunt. He feels bad and says that he did not activate the hour of the genius. It took a long time to hunt. She gives him some energy drink. While drinking it, he says he knew the calculation would not balance out nicely, but this is way too off. It is not like he can be killing monsters every single hour. The biggest concern, however, would be that there are a limited number of monsters. Since he has been hunting for the last few days, he has killed most of the monsters. At this rate, my plan of having a great life is in danger of completely falling apart. He says not having many monsters in this vicinity nowadays is also a big problem. Jitri says she can't believe he thinks having no monsters is a problem. If other people heard what he just said, they would think that he'd have become strange. He says it can't be helped, so asks them to return to the mansion for today. Jitri says after reaching back, she will prepare warm bath water for him and tells him she will prepare it at a comfortable temperature. He says, as expected of a genius, he wants to bathe before dinner, so please make sure the timing is correct. Jitri says, okay, leave this matter to her. Rona says don't forget her too, as she will clean up his room. Then Nox asks Jitri that answer him honestly about who she is serving. She says no matter how beautiful or great a sword is, if she can't use it, then she won't hesitate to throw it away. Nox asks this for her answer. Then she says she has not said anything yet though. He says that he knows what she wants to say, so do not worry, he does not intend to interrogate her any further. He is thankful to her that at least she did not lie. He further says no matter who she is serving, he will think of her as one of his own. If she needs to, then make use of him as well. That is all that he wanted to say. As compared to having mutual trust, it would be sufficient for them to just be making use of each other, he says. That is the kind of relationship he has with her after all. After coming back, Rona and Jitri discussed with each other about Nox. Jitri says the rumors that young Master Nox is a changed person she has heard countless times from when she was in the Lavilia family. She had thought that the rumors were probably fabricated since it is really rare for someone to change this much. They said that he defeated the twins in one go and obtained the right to attend the academy. And he is also someone who is solidifying his standing within the family. He is different from those who have fallen all the way down despite being a legitimate successor. Shortly after, a groundless rumor started to spread around within the Reinharber family. The rumor stated that Jitri was expelled from her family and no longer deserved to be a maid of the Reinharber family. The Reinharber family is one of the top dark families after all. Jitri thinks that even though she is just being used as a maid for a good-for-nothing son, for a commoner who's lost her family, she says she does not have the right to serve him, so she will soon be cut off and will be serving someone new soon. Later, when comes to the kitchen, all the maids look at her surprisingly. She thinks it looks like everyone has heard the rumors. She says she is already used to these looks of disdain. Rona says she has been looking for her everywhere. Jitri thinks might be Rona did not listen to the rumors, or she is just messing with her, or maybe she is considering her as her friend. Jitri says whatever the case is, Rona is doing something foolish now. Meanwhile, Nox knows all the crimes that were framed upon Jitri's father, they all were just fabricated. But he also knows that he is unable to help her because there is no way to know what butterfly effect would be caused just by him helping her survive. The next day, when they go hunting, Rona says the young master is looking too harsh today. He used to be a little more merciful in the past, but today he is a little harsh. Jitri also says this is making her feel uneasy. Nox thinks that it should be the time when monsters must appear today. In the missing child's forest, a monster that appears randomly when there are only about 20% of the monsters left is the hidden boss monster. He was thinking of killing it because he thought it would help him in getting his stats increased. But he guesses that is not going to work. At that moment, suddenly, he sees a monster whose speed is on a different level. He thinks that is what a hidden boss is like. But this time, the monster that appears is the Elite King Wasp. He thinks this is a troublesome one, but it is not at the level he can't kill. Suddenly, Wasp attacks him, but Jitri saves him. He thinks that was an attack he could either dodge or block. Why did she save him? He wonders how many people would be able to run towards a monster that suddenly appeared. So he decides to make use of this as well for the sake of saving her. His skill of the Hour of the Genius has been activated. After some time Jitri falls, it is said that there has never been a day that the wounds on her knee have completely healed. That is what her parents told her, that her wounds are never completely healed, says Jitri. However, that does not simply apply to only her knee wounds, but also her heart wounds. Soon, the monster has been defeated. After that, Nox asks Jitri to hold on for a little longer. It's all over now.
He will take her back now, but she feels faint. On the other side, Theo receives a report and says this is troubling when Rotwell says based on their investigations, the contents of the letter are true. The Lovalia family has decided to completely cut off Miss Jitri. Theo says the reason he brought Jitri here in the first place was for the sake of taking over the Lovalia family. Since they had lost their previous head of the house and were in an unstable state, he'd thought that this would be the perfect chance to take over them. For example, if the situation within the family is so unstable, the successor's position in the family would be shaky with the involvement of the Reinharber family. Theo says they should be able to bring them into submission somehow. But what if Jitri is expelled from the family before any plans can even take place? This can't be helped then. Rotwell says, while it is regretful if they place a maid that does not belong to any family besides young Master Nox, they will be looked down upon within Eldian Academy. Theo says he thinks they ought to deal with it quietly on their end. Then suddenly, another servant arrives there, apologizes for interference, and tells young Master Nox carried back a maid who had been injured during his hunt. The maid has been poisoned and is in a very critical state. He has used a very expensive antidote without permission, so he is here to report that to him, says that servant. Rotwell asks if Nox has used the Mandrake's purifying potion. Then the servant says yes. Theo thinks it seems Nox had grown attached to the maid so quickly and says no one knows what result could come out of personal feelings like that. On the other hand, when Jitri comes back to her senses, Rona starts crying with happiness and says she is so glad that Jitri is awake. While, earlier when the doctor shows reluctance in using the medicine, Nox says someone is dying and all he cares about is how precious that medicine is. The doctor says that is not the matter, but if the young master has not gotten permission from the patriarch to use this medicine, then he can't use it. Nox says he will report this to his father personally, so do it right away. So the doctor uses that antidote and says now that the poison has been neutralized, she will be all right. Nox asks Rona to report to him personally once Jitri wakes up. He then comes to meet his father, Theo. Theo asks the matter, as it is rare for Nox to come look for his father. Nox says he remembers that he said earlier he would grant one wish of him. So he wants father to give Jitri de Lavillier to him. She has been exiled from her family. Nox thinks today, when he saw her trying to save him, he realized something. The answer that she did not tell him previously. The fact that she showed it with her actions. Theo agrees and says if that is what he wants, he will make it happen. Then Nox says this unworthy son of him has just one more thing to tell him. Theo asks him to speak. Then he says even if he is his father, please stop trying with his people. Then he goes back. Later, he sees Jitri going somewhere with her bag. He asks where she is going now. She says she is about to leave, as she does not think there is any place for her here anymore. She says she was ordered by the patriarch to surveil him, which includes her deceiving him as well. He says people deceive each other a lot to begin with. She says, but she has committed a grave offense against him. He says that is precisely why. After committing a grave offense against him, she wants to leave without repaying him for it. He says she is staying in this place. He does not know what his father thinks, but he does not need that Lavillia family name of hers. He just needs the talents that she has. So he wants her should assist him by his side as a maid until she gets back for the offense of deceiving him. She says understood, she will stay by his side until the end and assist him. Later, Rona tells another maid that she knows that the young master threatened the doctor by saying that he will kill him. At that moment, Nox reaches there and asks her to refrain from insulting him in front of him. He says she is always causing trouble for him. He then says Jitri will be going to the Eldian Academy together with him in 2 months. She says yes, she has already made quite a bit of preparations for that. When he asks about what kind of preparations, she says things like basic tools that he will need, books, medicine, emergency items, clothes, and a cadet uniform for external trips. Nox thinks Jitri no longer forces herself to smile in front of him. He is more comfortable with her being like this, because they don't have to give unnecessary compliments to each other or engage in meaningless small talk. But in a situation where they are driven to a corner, in that situation, even when their backs are facing each other, they won't betray each other. When Nox is reading some books later, she asks him if he is all right. As there have been some negative rumors about him spreading recently, he says it is pretty impressive that there can be worse rumors than the existing ones. She says people are saying that the reason he is still hiring her as his maid is because he likes her. That is the rumor. He says to think he'd feel such a sense of shame for playing the role of Nox. He then says sorry to her as she got implicated because of him. She says that is not what she means. She was just thinking that he might be uncomfortable because of such rumors. He asks her if there is no need to worry. She must have heard his previous rumors too. He is the good-for-nothing idiotic and incompetent youngest son of this family. She says yes, she did hear those rumors. On top of those, there were also rumors that he was perverted. He thinks that means his image is better now. He then says previously, he was a reckless good-for-nothing despite being so weak. But nowadays, he is just a brat who acts up even though he is pretty capable. But still, he needs to strike a balance. He knows Nox will be the villain in the end, so he must remain a villain to help the protagonist shine because he is not the protagonist of the inner lunatic. He then asks her to stop talking about the rumors and forget them. She tells him that she has got a task for him. As he already knows, to survive in the Eldian Academy, she won't be the only one who needs to prepare. But he will need to prepare as well. He thinks Jitri's single-minded trait refers to how she trusts a certain person. It won't be an issue if he shares a little bit of his plans with her. He knows, in fact, he needs her to know more about him so that it will be easier for him to get to do things. He then says he is intending to study magic before he joins the academy, so he wants her to help him with that. She says he must know that it is illegal in this empire. He says of course he knows this, and he is a good-for-nothing after all, a lustful one at that. She says she is sure there is a reason he has made such a decision, so she will look for basic books that could be of help to him. He says great, she is competent as expected. Both of them suddenly hear a noise from outside. When they see it, Nox sees young Master Green after coming back after graduating from Eldian Academy. He thinks he almost forgot about such an important event. He says the chance to extend his life is finally here. Then he returns to Jitri and tells her that it seems he will need to go on a faraway mission for the time being. On the other hand, when Green meets his father, Theo appreciates him for graduating from Eldian Academy. Green von Reinharber is Theo's second son and one of Nox's older brothers. Nox has observed Green through his hidden skilled eyes and comes to know that Green is a lustful man who brightens up upon seeing materialistic women and opportunists. The only reason why Green's true color had not been exposed was because Nox was a worse good-for-nothing. He is very good at getting along with others in the world of politics. He uses his talent in playing politics to easily graduate from the academy. Eldian Academy is very famous but also very hard to graduate from. In its admission test, less than 1,000 people would pass and only half of those who were admitted would graduate. Theo asks Green what the date for his departure to Chaders decide. Green says yes, he will depart to the south for Chaders in 3 days. Theo says if he is going there at this time of the year, it should be a monster hunting mission. Chaders is a little outside the Reinharber territory. It is a neutral territory of the south, and it is also on the borders with Tagelin in the east, which uses an undeveloped desert as its borders. It is not only barren, but it is also swarming with monsters, so it is the worst kind of wasteland. The mission that Green received from the Imperial family would be to stop the monster wave in Chaders. Because the rule of the Archheim Empire is that one must complete the first mission given to them by the Empire, for them to become a knight that is recognized by the Imperial family. Green says when winter comes, Chaders is always filled with monsters after all. It seems the Imperial family wants to take some initial measures against the monsters. Theo says while the land is barren, other areas will also suffer if that place falls. In any case, do not bring any shame to the Reinharber name. Theo advises Green, who says that he will bear that in mind, father. While Nox thinks this Chader mission is not just a simple monster hunting one, so he asks his brother that as he is going to the Chaders, naturally for him to gain those things, could he bring him along? Because he will have to participate in the Chaders' subjugation himself. Green says he should know what kind of place are the Chaders. Nox says he has heard that it is a neutral area where monsters would attack suddenly on an intermittent basis, and also one where bandits are secretly increasing their forces. Green says he knows that Nox has accomplished a lot of great feats recently, but he can't let him, who has not even been admitted to a Lydian academy, come along with him on the mission. He says he would prefer not to have to be the one to collect his corpse. Theo interferes and says he can be the one to guarantee that that won't happen, and asks Green to bring his brother on the mission with him. When Green shows anger, Theo says this is an order and tells them that their family will be providing the necessary supplies for the mission, so they should make the necessary preparations for the departure in the next 3 days. Nox is surprised that his father permitted him so easily. He suspects Theo is up to something. Green tells Nox it would be a real pity if he got injured after getting the rare chance to go the Chaders. He attacks Nox, but then suddenly Jitri arrives there and tries to stop him. In that try, she puts some stains on Nox's shirt. She apologizes to young Master Nox and says she will wash it for him right away and please head to his room first. Nox says sorry to his brother and says it seems her maid has made a mistake. Then he leaves from there. Before going, he tells his brother that he will see him again, as there are 3 days from now on the departure day for the Chaders' subjugation. While walking, Nox thanks Jitri as he was able to get out of something troublesome just because of her. She says he surely has a talent for getting into trouble. She asks him if will he be all right and tries to say something about Chaders, but he stops her and says it will be okay. Suddenly, Rona comes there and asks where he just said he would go. He thinks she may have forgotten that he is her young master. So he tells her that everything is already decided. He is surprised to hear that the news of a good-for-nothing joining the Chaders' subjugation has spread. Jitri says this time she also agrees with Rona, as the Chaders region is very dangerous. The number of monsters and bandits ranges in the hundreds in that place. While Nox is happy that that is why he is going there in the first place. It is his chance to extend his life. He tells them that he will be going to the subjugation mission without both of them, so he wants both of them to remain here. But Digitri says she won't let him do that. As his exclusive maid, she must assist him no matter where he is, so he will be going with his as well. When Nox says that she could get hurt, Jitri says that's the same for him as well. She tells him that she heard from Rona that he was very weak and prone to illness, so it would not be best for him to make such a long-distance journey without her. He frequently forgets his things as well, and he also needs his clothes to be washed. He cannot do all of these by himself alone, she tries to convince him. But Nox thinks what she mentioned are the trivial details that he did not worry about when it was just a game. If he dies, then her position in the Reinharber family would be in trouble as well. He thinks Jitri has no choice but to follow him, so he asks her if she must listen to his orders, and she will also need to learn how to ride Carl. She says she has gotten much closer to Carl already. She used half of her salary to buy top-grade sugar cubes for horses, and he opened up pretty quickly. So he finally announces that Rona will be staying here and Digitri will be going with him for his help, and since she will be coming alone, he will need her to make thorough preparations. Rotwell arrives there and tells him the Patriarch has an item that he'd like to pass to him. Nox remembers the words of his father when he said earlier that their family would be providing the necessary supplies for the mission. He thinks maybe this one item is one of those supplies. He also does not know why, but his father took his side during dinner just now. He becomes sure that his father is up to something. So he comes to meet his father and says he heard that he has something for him. Theo says yes, but whether he can obtain this item or not will depend on him. This item is the sword of Reinharber's first patriarch. Nox says this is unexpected because this item never appeared in Inner Lunatic before. Even a veteran player like him who has celebrated the game 27 times does not know about this item. He does not understand the current situation or why his father is giving that to him only, and decides that he must get his hands on it. Theo says the appearance of the sword may look worn out to him, however, this sword accompanied the first patriarch for the whole of his life. Theo says it is a sword that he has also kept with him in his entire life. Nox asks him to tell him the test that he must go through for this. Theo asks him to try holding up the sword. When Nox holds it, he feels his mana becomes different. The blade's color changed. Theo says, as expected, he has already started to sense mana. That is good. It is as he had thought. He says that this sword absorbs the mana of its master and unleashes it severely. Nox guesses this won't be an easy sword to use. Nox is given a warning by a system that as his mana is absorbed at a rapid rate due to the abrupt change in condition, the trait, Mater of Acting, is unstable. He says it will get dangerous for him if his mana is being absorbed this quickly. Theo says if he wants to receive this sword, he just needs to last 10 minutes while holding the sword. He also tells Nox that the name of this sword is Stormbringer. The system says the player's life force is forcefully converting into mana. His life is being depleted quickly. He decides to give up now, as he does not care anymore. But he also does not let go of the sword at the same time. Theo is observing him thoroughly. Stormbringer is a magic sword that gives one tremendous power since it brings harm to the ones that hold it. The first patriarch used this sword to build up the family. However, while Reinharber rose to be a reputable dark family, his descendants were unable to properly wield this sword. 9 out of 10 people would collapse immediately due to exhaustion as soon as they held the sword. To be able to last more than 10 minutes would already be a long time. Even Theo can only hold it for barely an hour. But he ordered his youngest son, who has not fully learned how to control mana, to hold this sword, including the recent incident of him saving the maid. And all sorts of huge incidents that happened in the family, Nox was always involved. This is all not a coincidence. He is growing more than Theo has expected. Theo thinks maybe Nox is as talented as a sword emperor, and that is why he decided to test him. If he can last 10 minutes while holding the sword, that means Nox will be able to become the greatest patriarch in their family's history. And he will also surpass Theo and succeed in killing him eventually. After some time, when Nox puts the sword on the ground, Theo says that he thinks Nox was hiding his strength. "This sword is his now," says Theo. Nox asks him to give his life force back to him before leaving the place. 3 days later, they departed for the Chater's subjugation. Jitri says there were a lot of things to bring along. She is glad that the dimensional pouch can hold all of them. Nox has been waiting to go for this subjugation, but it looks like he is in a bad mood. Nox says although Theo gives him another item to bring along other than a Stormbringer, he is not thankful at all after seeing his life force being taken away. He thinks Garen brought quite a lot of things. Garen says among the monsters that he has learned about in the academy, it is a little too much since he made it a condition for him to carry these things in return for letting him tag along. But it is all right since he will be making use of him. As they are moving slowly, Garen asks his fellow Ron when they will arrive at this rate. They also adopt some different routes. Ron apologizes and says it is because he has never taken this route before. Ron is a Knight Order Captain Ron who has been hired by Garen. It seems they have lost their way. When Jitri asks Nox about this, he says it seems they have gotten themselves into a situation. When he tells his brother that they have lost their way, Garen says it is none of his business and he must keep quiet. When Nox says he can get them at the location, Garen becomes surprised. Because he thinks Nox has only lived in the mansion for all of his life, and now he is saying that he can get them there. Nox again asks to hire him as the Pathfinder, and says he is quite talented and even their family's vessels complimented him for it. Garen becomes shocked to hear that the vessels have complimented him. Meanwhile, Jitri knows he is blatantly lying now. Garen says if he fails to bring them there, he might be able to bring down that confidence of his, and says in that case it might not be such a bad idea even if it means they take a little detour. So he says since Nox is that confident, so he will let him take the lead for now. So Nox starts leading the caravan. When the sun is about to set, they set camp for the night. 2 of the fellows discuss with each other how the hell young master finds the right path so quickly. Garen says this is the south which has not been explored yet. Even trained guides have a hard time finding their way around here. But how did Nox do it? They all are still surprised. While Nox, who is listening to their talk quietly, says he already knows the way. It is an easy task for a veteran player. Since the Chater's area is a strategic hub, he has visited it more than a few hundred times. Jitri also asks him how did he find the way so quickly. He asks her to look at the ground and tells him what is there. She sees and says that is the footprints and feathers of an owl bear. Owl bear is a monster with an ear's body and an owl's head that lies in the south. Nox says the owlbear's habitat is on the South Chater's border, and so if they just follow the direction of those tracks, they will be able to easily find their way to Chater's. Jitri says it may not be good for them to set up overnight camp in the habitat of the owlbears,
But he says since they are afraid of fire, they won't go into a camp where there are so many people. While people gather woods to set fire, they also discuss with each other that the young master is much better than the second young master who studied at the academy. Garen becomes angry after hearing such comments. But those people also tell him that Hartz and Alan have also lost to him. Garen's butler Schultz says that is right. Garen says he needs strong see just how strong he is. Schultz says he happens to have the perfect item for that, and then gives that item to Garen. Garen says it looks like it will be a long night for Nox. Later, at night, Nox asks Jitri to wait in the tent after hearing some kind of roar. When he comes outside, he sees 4 ogres that probably have caused the roar. He knows the soil there is mixed with a female ogre's pheromones. He probably made use of the fact that it's the mating season of the ogres now to lure the male ogres here. While Green intended to use them to intimidate Nox, so he comes forward to deal with those ogres. He uses Stormbringer to attack them. While fighting, he says this sword is pretty good. He was worried he would be in trouble if it started to eat up his mana recklessly like when he was in front of Theo, but his worry was unfounded. It feels like the sword is moving easily in the direction that he wants. Soon he killed 3 of them, only 1 is left now. The only surviving ogre tries to run away, but Nox says he can't allow that, so he sits on Carl and chases that ogre. Later, when he returns, Jitri comes out of the tent and asks if Master Nox is all right. He says he told her to wait in the tent. She is shocked at how could ogres be appearing at the entrance of the forest. She advises to call the night watch and wake the rest up just in case. He then tells her that someone intentionally lured the ogres here, and that person is only Green von Reinharber. He made use of the ogre's behavior to attack them. This is why he purposely set his tent up further away from them, says Nox. Jitri says that means young Master Green is trying to keep Nox in check. Nox agrees to her, then he asks Carl to go to sleep now. He also says Green probably thinks about him and that he does not know how to get into the line of being a successor candidate of the family. That is why he judged that it'd be better for him to test Nox's abilities in advance. Nox knows as compared to the eldest son, Green is not as strong, so he has no choice but to use a cowardly plan like this to get information. But Nox ought to let him know that that won't work on him. Jitri asks him what he is trying to do now. He tells her that only the ogre's blood can lure away more ogres. The ogres are like humans. They would seek revenge for their fellow fallen ogres. He uses the ogre's blood to lure more ogres, but this time their enemy would be Green. Meanwhile, Green wakes up as his mana detection crystal is giving off a reaction right now. It is a magic tool that can detect the mana of monsters in the vicinity. He thinks it may be faulty, but it is a new tool that he got from his father. He says they are still at the entrance of the forest. There is no way a monster that is strong enough to activate the mana would appear here. Then suddenly, his fellow advises him to evacuate this place right away as there is an emergency. N. Green asks what happened. He is informed that the ogres have appeared here in a large group. Green says, damn it, this is not the place where the ogres should be appearing. After dealing with them, he scolds his people for planting the soil on the top of his tent. But that man refuses and says this is strange, as he planted it on the top of young Master Nox's tent. On the other hand, when Nox wakes up, he says what a refreshing morning and asks Jitri to come and eat with him. But she says she is a maid, she can't eat together with him. But he says they are in the midst of a mission now. It will be troublesome if she has to prepare her meals separately. It'd also be bad if a monster appeared. He also says who knows tens of ogres might appear like they did at his brother's tent area. She says she was just thinking that the master she ought to be serving is a little shameless. Soon, Green orders everyone to pack up the tents, and the blood-stained tent needs to be thrown away though. They will keep getting chased by ogres then. Dimitri asks Nox if should they help them, but he refuses and says nope, he would not help them. She says that means they will keep getting chased by ogres, and even if they move away from this place, the ogres will probably keep coming after them. Nox says that is what he was after from the start, though as he needs more ogres to appear to extend his life. After eating, he asks her to pack up things and depart now. On the second day of the mission, Nox was able to successfully grasp the terrain of this entire area. Chaders is still quite far away, so he was a little
Worried, but this is great. Green asks him what he intends to do about the ogres that are on their tails. Nox says they could execute a large-scale subjugation here, but they'd draw the attention of other monsters. So instead, they will be putting all their efforts into getting out of this first quickly. There won't be any problems if they make it out of this forest quickly. Other fellows say, unknowingly,
Young Master Nox has taken over the command of the soldiers. One of them asks him the reason for tapping the ground. Nox says he keeps tapping the ground because monsters might appear at any time. Soon, there appear monsters in the form of worms. The worm is a monster that looks like both a snake and an earthworm. In Inner Lunatic, it is known as a malformed dragon that has not fully developed yet. Nox says thanks to that, it can't use any magic, but it is still famous for being very strong. Even if tens of ogres came swarming at them, this worm would still be the more difficult monster to defeat. But he was looking for it. He knows although the soldiers would probably be in shock if they knew that he was trying to get the worm to come out by tapping on the ground. He then orders everyone to prepare for the battle and hide in the bushes. They ask why they would hide, as they are going to attack. He says let their enemies defeat their enemies. He had no intentions of shaking off the ogres from the start. Jitri tells him that so many ogres have caught up to them. He says there is no need to be worried as he has something in mind. He asks her if she knows what monster the worm loves the most yet hates the most at the same time. When she says she does not know about it, he tells it is ogres. They are the worm's main food source, but they are always seeking revenge. They are arch enemies of each other. That is why skilled adventurers will know how to make use of that. Soon, everyone becomes shocked to see that worm and ogres are attacking each other. Green is surprised at how Nox knows about such information. Jitri says this means they just need to wait right now. But Nox throws some rocks at them. She says if he keeps doing this, ogres will attack them instead. He says he needs to damage the ogres at least once for him to get the experience. His status window informs him that his life has been extended by 8 hours for defeating the ogres, and his strength stat has increased by 0.1. Green says the fight is over finally, and it is good that Nox made use of the ogres, but they lost in the end. He worries what they must do now, as the worm is too hard for them to kill for him to escape safely. Nox again asks everyone to prepare for battle now and says either fire arrows or throw spears at the mouth of the monster. Another fellow asks everyone to follow young Master Nox's order and attack the monster. After the attack, Nox says it is his turn now. He moves ahead to attack. Soon, they defeat the monster. His status window tells him that his life has been extended by 10 days for defeating the worm. The remaining life he has left is 122 days. He thinks 10 days is more than his expectations. He guesses that is a mid-sized monster, and if it were not for the ogres, they would not have been able to have killed it so easily. Then, the effect of the trait, Blessing of Growth, has disappeared. Along with the Curse of the Weak, the Hidden Peace, the Blessing of Growth that he had used is gone as well. He has finally reached 5 stamina. One of the soldiers asks him if he is hurt anywhere, and he says no, he is all right. Then he appreciated everyone as they did a great job. They also appreciate him and say he was amazing. He says that was nothing, then asks them to reorganize themselves. Suddenly, another worm appears, and everyone is asked to get into position. But they were shocked to see someone else killed that worm. Nox recognizes that person and is surprised at what he is doing here. He is the sword genius, the strongest character in Inner Lunatic. One of the 3 sword emperors along with Theo and Celsus' student. His name is Paracelsus. Paracelsus says that he just saved them, so he deserves a single word of thanks. Nox knows he hates nobles to his core. Schultz calls Paracelsus an impudent bastard and says he must know who the young master is. Then Paracelsus apologizes and says they can just think of him as a mercenary. Nox thinks it is easy to understand his hatred for nobles with what he experienced when he was younger, but the more important issue here is that the first encounter with Paracelsus is supposed to be in Eldian Academy. He has played this game countless times, and he had never encountered him before the academy started. When Schultz says he wants to check his identity, Paracelsus says of course he can check. Later, when they start their journey again, Paracelsus accompanies them too. Green says as he said he is a mercenary, so is he also headed for Chaders. Paracelsus says yes, that is his first stop. He further says he heard that this place is a good spot to hunt for monsters around this time of the year. When Nox hears this, he says come to think of it, To further his training, Paracelsus did travel everywhere within the empire before school started. He supposes that he is set to train in random areas. Green says as Paracelsus looks quite young and also looks like he is pretty confident in his skills, but he must not travel alone. He says he will make sure to pay him handsomely if he joins under his command to subjugate monsters. Paracelsus says since they are the sons of one of the Sword Emperors, Theo Reinharber, he is indeed curious about the two of them. Schultz becomes furious as he speaks so rudely. But Green stops Schultz and says he will give Paracelsus some time to think about it. He thinks he must recruit him as one of his people as he has seen his skills to take down a worm in one strike. He thinks that is how he will take the attention of the soldiers back from Nox. When they reach Chaytor's, Nox informs them. He feels Chaytor's is even more deserted than when he was playing it as a game. When they enter, a girl comes to them and says she needs something to eat. Then a person comes and introduces himself as Tegan, the security chief of this village. He says he recognizes Sir Green von Reinharber, who has graduated from Eldian Academy, and his brother, Nox von Reinharber. He tells them that he has been told in advance of their subjugation mission and that they will be coming here. Meanwhile, Paracelsus thinks he had great expectations when he heard that the Prod Reinharber family was going on a subjugation mission in Chaytor's personally, but earlier when he was able to deal with a worm with pretty decent sword techniques, they were still just sheltered young masters of a noble family, he guesses. He says this is a big disappointment. This city is not able to function properly. The Night Order is busy misappropriating the people's money to fill their stomachs, and the people of this city are unable to stand their ground against the monster wave. To think they are in a state where they'd be satisfied if they had some food. When they reach the inn, Tejan says since it is quite late already, he will tell them about the details of the mission tomorrow. He also says this inn is not much, but he hopes they will be able to get some rest from their long journey here. Paracelsus tells Green that he refuses the offer he proposed to him just now. Green asks them what he intends to do as he is not going to fight the monster wave alone. Nox is also hearing their discussion. Paracelsus says firstly, he intends to move according to what he has initially planned, and he also wishes them a safe subjugation. He says if one has the skills, they will be able to make it in the world. That is just how the world works. Rumors follow the competent. They might meet again sooner than expected, he says. Nox asks Dimitri to rest up. They will be moving again tomorrow. Later, when he opens the window of his room, he sees a few kids sitting outside near the fire. He comes outside and meets that girl who met them earlier, and now sitting with another baby girl, he gives them some food to eat. She confirms she can take this food. He says he can't save everyone, so he guesses this could just be the doing of Yoo Chan's kindness and generosity. That girl thanks him for the food. He wants to create a future where they don't have to beg for food. For that to happen, they first need to survive in the Chaytor's. Jitri, who followed him, when sees all of this, says she knows he was just acting cold just now. The next day, Tejan tells them as they already know, the southern Chaytor's region is usually swarmed with monsters during the winter, and so they have always requested for funds and reinforcements from the imperial family. When Green asks if this is all he has for protecting the village, Tejan says yes, that has been around for a long time, so it needs some repair. Nox knows once the monster wave starts, they will probably last less than an hour before getting wiped out. Because this is just a sub-chapter. It is his choice whether he wants to save this village or not, and most of the time he chooses to help the Chaytor's region. The reason is obvious, as it has high value. He believes that Chaytor's will become a really expensive piece of land in the future. Tejan says something seems different about the monsters this year. The number of rampant monsters has significantly increased as compared to the previous years. When he tells this, Nox thinks these people do not know it right now, that having more rampant monsters would help them in the future. What is worse is that some of the villagers have seen a griffin as well. A griffin makes the situation way more severe. Tejan says griffin was seen in the wilderness. One of the most important factors of the Chaytor's subjugation will be whether or not they were able to drive away the griffin. Griffin is also known as the king of the wilderness. Nox knows the griffin was designed to be stopped, not defeated, but he intends to defeat that griffin. Then Tejan leads them to an area and says that would be the endless horizon of the wilderness. He says that it is an area that is connected to Tehran in the east, a neutral zone. It is famous for being a barren land. Nox says something is strange about this place and tells them that griffins do not usually stay near the Trader's village. They would usually stay near Tahalin. Nox has a good guess on who is the traitor that will backstab them in this subjugation. The sub-quest has started. They are asked to try to cut out the rottenest part of the village first. Later, Schultz, who is reading information about Nox, says he was not worried at all about him at first because he heard he was just a useless brat,
but to think he would fall for his scheme and fall out of favor with Green. He says he went through so much effort so that he could gain Green's favor though, so he won't let him off easily. Then Jitri arrives there, and when he sees her, he stands up. He heard that she was a commoner. He stops her and holds her hand. She asks him to leave her hand, as he has no business to do with her. But he has tons of business. It is nothing serious. He just wanted to have a little chat with her, just the two of them. But she says she does not think they have anything to talk about alone, though. He says there is nothing wrong with it. He might be a knight who is serving a master, but he still deserves to have some fun. Then he holds his hand on her shoulder. She asks him to let go of her. But then she thinks if she rejects his advances right now, young Master Nox will fall out of favor with young Master Green. Nox might get into trouble and draw unnecessary attention from the family, and she does not want young Master Nox to suffer. Schultz says thanks to his master, he has lost more than 10 years of his life's efforts, and he will be making her pay for that. Then suddenly, Nox arrives there and hits him with his sword. Schultz warns him and says he must think about what he is doing now, as Master Green will not stand by him and will not let him do this. But Nox again hits him and asks him to stop threatening him with his brother. Schultz falls and says this is completely wrong, even though he has his family behind him. Mox says no, he is not the one who does not know his place because his family is behind him. He again attacks him and kills him. Jitri says young Master Green will not let this pass. At that moment, Green arrives there and asks what happened there. Nox tells him he has killed Schultz. Green becomes furious and says a good-for-nothing like him dares to say that he was the one who cut his knight. Nox tells his brother that he has got the sequence of events wrong. He must ask him first about the details of the incident. But Green holds him by the collar and says if the reason for killing Schultz is not justifiable, he won't be able to escape from being punished. Nox says he simply heard Schultz was trying to sexually harass his maid, and as her master, it was not possible for him to just stand by and watch that happen. Green says it was just because of that. She is just a commoner, and he should have at least reported it to him first. Nox says he has forgotten him, and that he is the feigned food for nothing of their family, and he is not used to doing things like reporting or waiting. He then asks Green to leave the settlement of this issue for their father to decide after they return to their estate. Green agrees and says all right, they will leave the decision on how to settle this incident to father once they return. Nox calls this a wise decision and then takes Jitri and leaves the place. After they are gone, Green thinks since when did he become so strong, also he has seen the sword that he is holding somewhere before. He decides not to underestimate Nox during this subjugation mission. On the other side, Nox asks Jitri if she is hurt anywhere. There will be quite a ruckus among the soldiers. They're already split into factions and are at a crossroads where they have to make a decision. He thinks about whether the soldiers will follow Green or him rather. He again asks her if she is all right. She says yes, she is all right, but why he did do that. If matter blows up, it will make more enemies for him, and if that happens, then he will get into danger again, she says. But he says she must know what kind of person the master whom she is serving. He is the good-for-nothing of the Reinharber family, so no matter where they are, do not ever bow her head, he advises her. She says yes, she will bear this in her mind now. On the other hand, Green is still wondering how the good-for-nothing tries to climb above him. At first, when father placed Nox under his charge, he had just thought of him as a troublesome task. But now that they are on the mission, he is completely different from what he had thought of him. And the sword he was holding, it is probably just a coincidence that it looked similar to his father's sword, so he must be wary of Nox now. Now that he has lost Schultz, who can he trust with the task of monitoring him? Then, one of his soldiers arrives and informs him that the situation on the first floor has been taken care of. But young Master Nox is quite different from the rumors they have heard of him. Then Green says not only Nox is different, but he is too. He then asks that soldier who is supposed to be the captain of a night order that has been operating in this area for a long time. Then how could Nox, who has only studied books, know this place better than him? He further says since the monster wave has not even started, he will make use of his night order a little more. He then asks his knight to make sure to get rid of all the bandits and monsters in the vicinity. And if Nox starts to act up or act strangely, report it to him immediately, and he orders his knight. Meanwhile, Jitri asks Nox if he has taken a look at the walls of this village. He says yes, they are barely standing. He then asks her to go with him. While going, she asks where are they going, as it is in the opposite direction from their inn. He says he is thinking of recruiting a new person into their team, because even in a small village like this, there will be a genius character. Elena, a character that he recruits every time he comes to Chaders, is a genius potion maker. That means she is his potion shuttle. Jitri, surprised to know there is a genius potion maker, is hidden in such a shabby place. She says she does not understand if that person is talented, then there should not be any reason for them to be hiding in such a remote place. Nox says well, she has her reasons. That reason is the fact that this is the hidden route to clear Chaders, because in the future, Elena will be working for another instead of the Arcane Empire. If one does not clear Chaders with the hidden route, then they can never get Elena. Piven asks her to follow him carefully and watch where she is going so she does not fall. When they enter a room, she sees a light there and says she can't believe she is stuck in such a place. He says finally he has found his potion maker. As she is drinking, Jitri is shocked to see that the genius potion maker that he mentioned is this drunkard. Later, Elena apologizes as she did not know that he was from a reputable family. Nox says it is all right. That aside, he is here because he has got something to talk to her about, so stay focused. Nox knows at this point of the story that she is a genius character who has the highest potential for development and also a genius potion maker, Elena, so he has to get her here. Although she does have some flaws and she is kinda problematic, they do not have a choice. Jitri says she knows she is out of line for saying this, but she does not think it is a wise decision to recruit a drunkard. He says he knows that too, but they are out of options right now. She guesses it is complicated. Elena asks the reason why they have come here to look for her. He says he will cut straight to the point and asks her to join him. If she follows him, he will give her what she needs the most. She says sorry, but she can't accept his offer, as she has something that she has to do here. He asks if that thing is related to her friend, and she asks how he knows about it. He tells her shortly her friend will be executed, but if she accepts his offer, he can help her. She thinks who knows she might be able to save her. He again says he will rescue May for her if she joins him. She remembers the time when May stood against Taejin, who was demanding more tax, but she said he already raised the tax this month. People are dying here. The imperial family is already sending him funds, yet he has not even repaired the walls. She was speaking in front of Taejin. Belena says she would have preferred it be her that dragged away. If she reacted more aggressively back then, she would have been unable to rescue her friend by herself. She thinks Nox probably won't be able to save her either. She doubts that he would, but she does not think she will be able to forget this for a long time. On the other side, soldiers of Green are drinking in the bar. One of them asks the knight about the plans of Green. That knight, who is their captain and met him earlier, says Green is just an idiot. He says they just pretended to act like a night order, and he believed them without any suspicion. Although they got it by coincidence, it was worth ransacking the Ron Night Order's living place. They even managed to get something like a badge. With this, they can go for even bigger jobs. Another fellow says if they show off this badge to the Reinharber family as well, they will also think about this soldier that he is the captain of Ron Knight's order and will give him benefits fitting someone of that position. The third soldier also says while things did happen due to a coincidence, it is interesting their names are the same. Their captain says if they hold Green as a hostage, they could probably get quite a big payout since they are talking about a member of the Reinharber family. Another fellow says they are talking about the most influential family among the 3 dark families here, and he wonders if any bandit groups survived after messing with them. When he says this, others call him a coward and say this is why people call him an idiot. The captain stops them and says this is the Chaders, an area even the imperial family has given up on. He also says now they will hold Green hostage, get the handsome money, and then run off to the east. No matter how influential the Reinharber family is, they won't be able to do anything in an enemy nation surrounded by sand. He also says they just need to live a life of luxury after they seek asylum there. But this time around, that brat named Nox is with them as well. He is indeed a dangerous one. He has got a persistent personality. Captain orders to tell the rest of the fellows to not get involved with him until they finish things up here. Suddenly, the lights are turned off. Captain asks who the hell did this and asks everyone to stay calm. Soon, Nox comes there and says they are hiding here just like rats. He asks how are they trying to rob the Reinharber family. They must have overestimated themselves. The captain tries to calm him down and says he is mistaken about something. But Nox interrupts him and says he already knows that the various crimes that they have committed, including the misappropriation of funds together with Taejin. And he also knows that they are trying to make use of green. Then Captain laughs and asks him to think carefully. If he also wants to get rid of green, he would also gain a better standing within his family. All he needs to do is just look away this one time. There is no need for him to take any unnecessary risks, says Captain. Nox says he spouted all that nonsense while letting out his murderous intentions. He attacks and kills one of the soldiers and says there would be any idiot who is naive enough to believe that. Then the captain orders his people to get him. But Nox attacks them with his sword. The captain says that Fokker has been hiding his skills this whole time. This is dangerous, so he moves forward and says he needs to put an end to this immediately. He warns Nox to remember that he is only dying because of his arrogance. He then uses his southern sword technique. Nox keeps killing his people and says the captain is more simple-minded than he had expected. He then destroys his enemy's attack as a genius swordsman. The captain is shocked to see how he stops the traitor's sword technique. Not only did he stop, but he also succeeded in learning the southern sword technique. Nox thinks that compared to the sword techniques but he will be learning in the future, this might not be much, but this much would be enough for them now. The captain is also in shock because he says the sword technique that took him more than 10 years of his life to master. But a kid like him learned it so quickly. He warns Nox if he kills him, Taejin won't let him get away with it. He might have already heard what he has done. But Nox says do not be ridiculous. There are not any witnesses that have seen him killing him. When the captain says everyone here that is still alive will see it, Nox says Bandit Captain Run just listens carefully and that he is simply assassinating all of them. If no one lives to tell the tale, this will only look like an assassination. That is what the world thinks. On the other side, Taejin talks to Mei, whom he has imprisoned. He says as she said that she does not want to work and also does not want to be sold off to the other nobles. He tortures her for refusing his offers and says there is nothing she can do right now. The only thing that someone as lowly as she can do is to struggle on the ground. Mei remembers the words of her aunt when she was living in the orphanage, when she said that she knew Mei did her best, but she had got the mixture wrong this time as well. This is a matter of aptitude though. Mei says she had zero talent from the start, not in alchemy, swordsmanship, or anything else for that matter. But Alina was different. Aunt tells Alina that if only she was not from a war orphan, but from a noble family, even if it was a low-ranked one, and even if could at least get out of the orphanage, she could get more benefits from society. Mei knows Alina was different as she was an alchemy genius. She seemed like someone who did not belong in this place from the start. She had a sparkle around her and was constantly shining. Despite that, she had a very good relationship with her too. Mei also thinks that the bright smiles of Elena had caused her to be helplessly envious of her. That is why she had decided to sacrifice her instead of her, because she was certain that Elena could accomplish way more than someone like her ever could. Mei tells Taejin that struggling on the ground was the norm for her all her life, and whatever he wants to do after her death is none of her business. She tries to hurt herself, but Taejin stops her and says stop trying to harm herself, little bitch. Then Nox arrives there and says if Taejin makes it out of this place as a corpse, Elena will be sad. Taejin asks what brings him here. Nox says by the law of the imperial family, he will be executed. He further says, seeing as his partner Ron is also dead, it would be best for him to give up right now. Taejin says that is an unfortunate mishap, but as Nox came here alone, it seems that the young master of a noble family has underestimated him a bit too much. He can't defeat him alone, but Nox says he can do it. Things are progressing faster than expected, but it does not matter anymore. Taejin calls his people and orders them to kill Nox immediately. Nox's skill, the Hour of the Genius, has been activated. He soon defeats them all. Mei asks him who he is. Nox says after she wakes up from her sleep, everything will be over. Taejin is surprised how he defeated them all already. He moves forward to deal with him. He cannot imagine that he would be defeated by a mere brat. Taejin is the knight captain of the Chader's mercenary corps. His father was the most outstanding person in the village. Everyone wanted to be like him, and everyone respected him. He remembers when his father asked him if he knew the reason the people here followed him. When Taejin, who was a kid then, says he does not know, the father says it is strength. If one possesses overwhelming strength, then he can get away with doing anything. That is the law of a city on the borders of the HAREM Empire. When Taejin asks his father if he is the strongest person on this continent, his father says no, even though he is just one of the countless nobodies on this continent. There are numerous unbelievably strong swordsmen on the continent, and there are also many kids that are of his age, says father. He also says for a continent that is experiencing war, the reason that he has survived is because he chooses to not fight with them. Taejin says Nox von Reinharber must be one of those unreachable geniuses that his father mentioned. He is so talented that no one could reach him. He says the only reason he is dying now is because he chose to fight with him. Later, Jitri arrives to meet Elena along with Mei. Elena becomes so delighted to see Mei and hugs her. She says she was so scared as she thought she had left her. Mei says sorry to Elena and says that she was the selfish one. To think that she had wanted to do things alone while leaving her behind here. Elena asks Jitri about young Master Nox as she needs to thank him. Jitri says he should be wrapping up the situation and talking right now. When Elena asks what she means by talking, Jitri says she thinks he is taking some time to have a heart-to-heart conversation with his brother. However, that does not seem to be his true intention. On the other side, Green is waiting for Ron and asks how long is he going to keep him waiting. He also becomes angry about how he dares to make a noble from the Reinharber family wait. Then Nox arrives there and asks if he is available right now, giving him some time to talk about something important. When Green asks why would he talk to him, Nox says as he said it is an important matter. While back in their hometown, Theo receives a progress report of the mission. Rotwell says they received a message that young Master Nox has purged the corruption within the Chaders and has meted out appropriate punishment to those involved. He has requested a separate reward from his father for accomplishing that. He then gives some envelopes to Theo and says he is sorry, but he is unable to figure it out. Theo reads that letter and comes to know that the corruption of that place worsens every day, but no one had bothered with them. The reason for that is so simple, and that is because it would not be profitable. Theo says, however, it is also not that simple. It is also a place that has been a huge headache for the imperial family. The east of Chaders is the last line of defense, because if that place falls, the monsters will start heading toward the center. The central government has allocated a large amount of funds, troops, and also mercenary corps to defend the relevant areas. It is a region that is useless but cannot be abandoned. That is the kind of place Chaders is, says Theo. Rotwell says that Wasteland does not have any value. All the bandit groups, including Vermin and Taejin, are very dangerous. They will be hard to deal with even for Green. Theo says that if the Ron Knights, that is, Ron bandits attack in, the situation would probably turn for the worse. If they can't overcome a situation of that level, they do not deserve to be called as part of the Reinharber family. He also says, in the first place, he already placed the Black Sword Knights with them to prevent them from dying. More important is to talk about Nox now. Theo says what he is finding hard to understand is that Nox does not have such a generous heart to purge that corruption for nothing. It is the same with the request for Chaders. He also wants the imperial family to give him authority over that wasteland. Theo says to give up his rights as the youngest son of the Reinharber family, he will accept his request. If Nox can defeat all of them, he could certainly obtain the jurisdiction of that place to give it to him. It is a good opportunity for him to see how good his son, Nox, is at managing a territory. Rotwell says he understands if that is what he wants, and says he will send a letter to the Empire and begin the talks to obtain Chaders. Theo orders him to proceed with that. On the other side, when Nox tells Green about the incidents, Green asks so it means he wanted to say that Ron and Taejin wanted to kill him, and that he was there underlying. Nox says, yes, unfortunately, this is true. Green says, damn it. He is sure that the family already checked their identities. When Green looks at him, Nox says it seems he is scared of him, but Green smiles and says this is amusing, and says it means Nox wants to mess with him. Then he tries to calm himself down and says he needs to hold back. If he does not pass this test, then he cannot become a knight. He knows in the end, he has no choice but to accept Nox's offer. So he asks Nox what he wants. Nox says as expected of him, and he is quick to calculate the pros and cons. Then he says that he does not want much. First, just give him the right to command all the soldiers who are under Green's command now. Green agrees as he knows even if he does not give him the army, his life is in his hands. He does not want to admit it, but he still does not know how exactly strong Nox is. He then tells Nox that in return, he must remember to guarantee his life and yield the outcome to him. Nox says sure, but guarantees his life and the outcome are two requests. Green says right, he will hand over the mineral rights and artifacts of his large mine. So he needs to make sure he takes care of things properly. Nox says it is a small price to pay compared to his life, so please do not think that it is too much of a waste. He hopes they won't do something rash with each other. While later, Nox comes to meet Elena and shows her a letter. When she sees it, Elena says she has never made a metallization potion and a corroding potion before, but she thinks it is possible to make them. He says that is a good answer, but asks if will it be okay. Digertree says the young master's plan is too dangerous. Although it is not something that she, an ordinary maid, should ask, she wants to know the reason why he needs to kill Griffin. May also agrees and says they cannot lose their hero in vain. Nox asks them not to be sacred. If it was impossible, he would not have brought it up. He understands why they are so worried. Since he cannot tell them that there is something he needs to obtain after killing the Griffin, he has no choice but to lie. He says he has thought about it well, so do not ask about it further. Elena says she understands and will do her best to prepare the things he needs. Killing the Griffin and Chatters at the beginning of the game is close to impossible, Digertree thinks, since no one has succeeded in doing so. Nox says well, that is true only when they exclude him. Then he says he will explain the plan, and he is not going to repeat it, so listen well. He shows them a hidden route and says it is impossible to kill the Griffin here with a normal play style. It is hidden and only revealed to the so-called stagnant water gamers. He tells them that he is a stagnant water who has cleared his inner lunatic 26 times. That is the reason why he needs to kill the Griffin and the Chatters. He asks if they understand well. They say yes. He further says it is a given but also simple, since the reward he will get is that great too. Then he will end the explanation here and they will proceed with the plan tomorrow. He says if he does not put his life on the line, he can't survive, since inner lunatic, which he has transmigrated to, is that type of world. The next day, when they reach the battle area, he asks everyone to get ready and says they have only one chance, remember that. He wonders why this moment feels so new. The fact that he became Nox von Reinharber and the only strategist. Digertree asks him if he will be all right and says she said it yesterday, but it is too dangerous. Nox stops her and asks her to trust her master. He then jumps to fight. Soon he killed the iron golem. The proficiency for Chatter's southern sword technique has increased. After some time, Griffin appears there. Griffin is coming towards Nox, while Garen with other people is watching from the side. Nox is fighting alone with Griffin. Elena says she has never seen any knight that is capable of fighting like that. She cannot believe that is humanly possible. May says she did think that he would be God, but to think he is so fast that it is hard for their eyes to catch up with his movement. She asks about the nature of the Reinharber family. Digertree tells her that the Reinharber family is famous for its swordsmanship, and also a place where internal fights take place to determine who is worthy of inheriting the black sword. That is the kind of place the Reinharber family is, and she can also say that the young Master Nox is the most talented among the candidates. Digertree also thinks that she still does not understand why young Master Nox does not address the bad rumors about him, but she is certain he has his reasons. May guesses the rumors about him were not all true. Looks like he has his reasons. Reasons that require him to be a good-for-nothing. She has no idea what those reasons could be, though. Digertree says yes, that is what she thinks too. She is sure there is a good reason he is acting like a good-for-nothing. He is a wise person after all. Elena says do not worry, as they will be keeping their lips tight. Green, who is looking from the top, says Nox is definitely out of his mind as he wants to fight that. He says in any case, he is only going to do as he was told. Then he orders all troops to wait until the Griffin is within short range of the fortress wall, and then they are to fire the ballista once ordered. They understand it well. When Griffin comes inside their range, they fire ballistas, which hurts Griffin's wing. Nox knows to defeat the Griffin. He has to neutralize that ridiculous flight ability that it has. He then consumed the metallization potion, and his stamina increased temporarily by 1. He has already made the necessary preparations in advance. He has asked Green to make ballistas. When Green objected to it, he said he could ask someone else to make a ballista, but in that case, Green would fight the Griffin on the battlefield then. So then Green agrees to make ballistas. Nox knew Green was someone with good instincts, and he would be useful. He says now the only thing left would be the function of Elena's potion and proving himself. He sees Griffin is feeling frustrated because things are not going his way. He can understand why, normally, such injuries should be nothing to it, since it is the Griffin, a high-level monster. The ballista that pierced through its wing slathered it with tons of the poison that Griffin liked so much. He asks it to look forward to what is coming to it. It will start to hurt in about 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is all Malx needs. He observes this pressure is different from the game. But he won't be the one who is dying, at least not today. He then orders Green to fire and says time to put an end to this has arrived now. Everyone is watching their fight with few fears. He uses his black sword to attack different parts of Griffin, and soon he defeats it. He has gained 60 days after defeating the Griffin, and now the remaining life he has left is 179 days. When he sees everyone is so happy about his victory, he says it feels pretty good. Green still cannot believe this, as the Griffin is a high-level monster. A monster like that was stumbling around because of some brat. He knows one needs to be at least be Academy Professor level to be able to take one on Matt easily. He has no choice but to acknowledge Nox's strength. He thinks if what Nox has shown so far is all true, then he might bring about a great change to the successor rankings within their family. He says he needs to make sure he is on the right side. He tells Nox that he will take charge and safely move Griffin's corpse inside, but Nox will be in charge of how he wants to distribute the loot. He also asks him to go and get some rest. Nox thinks it looks like that scares Green quite a bit. That is good, and now it is the time to use the hidden clear rewards. Then his status window displays the details of the items he obtained. The heart of the Griffin can be used to create an elixir. He can create an elixir that alters his stamina and agility. Depending on how skilled the alchemist is, he can decide whether it increases or decreases those stats. Later, Elena examines the heart of the Griffin and says, as he has said, the power of wind can be found within the heart. If they make good use of this, they could create the elixirs or equipment that they have only ever heard about in rumors. He says he does not have much time to wait around. He will be using this heart to create an elixir. He asks her how long will that take. She says that would depend on the situation, but with the tools she has currently, it might take a while. He says he will provide her with all the tools. He will also take this chance to make an offer to both of them, Elena and May, which is that he would like to hire both of them as the servants of the Reinharber family. When May says that they are just commoners, he says that does not matter. If they possess something that he needs, then he will just make use of them. There is no reason for them not to make use of him as well. However, he would never allow a dog to bite its master, of course. In any case, no one can make use of the monster's core properly at this point, especially as it is an item that has never been seen before since it was obtained by defeating a hidden boss that was not meant to be beaten. Crafting with it would be impossible for anyone other than a genius. That would never happen. He also saved their lives, so they will trust and follow him for the rest of their lives, says Elena. He says he will take that answer and tells, for the starters, he has obtained 2 genius characters. He then informs them they will be departing 3 days from now, so get themselves ready. The elixir will be created secretly after they return to the family empire, and he does not want anyone else to see it. While going back to Inn, Jitri says he is truly different from what she heard about him. The part about him being a selfish person who only cares about himself, she knows at least that that part is not true. She asks him if can he promise her one thing. No one knows when it might happen, but when he finds things tough one day, please let her know if she can help, despite her low status. She does not understand why so many people dislike him. He says, right, he will do that if that day does come. He then asks her to move quickly, as it would be bad if they caught a cold, as a night is pretty chill. Later, he becomes sick. He says he knows what she wants to say, but does not say it, as it is humiliating. She says it is all right, things like this happen, as he is still growing after all. He has obtained a negative ailment, chronic cough level 4. He says, this is fucking so ridiculous. The next day, the Empire family is informed that both of the young masters have returned. People see new women as servants and say Nox could not even hold himself back and brought back women again. One of them says he guesses a leopard cannot change its spots even if it looks like it is improving. Others stop him as he might get into trouble if Nox hears it. They also discuss that his clearing the missing child's forest was probably a lie, but the patriarch has said that it was all true. He's not one to lie. Nox hears these things and thinks no matter what he does, he can't get rid of that good-for-nothing image of him. Rotwell tells Nox that the patriarch has requested a private meeting with him. Nox says here it comes the time. When he comes to meet Theo, he says he hears that his father called for him. Theo says yes, as he has something to tell him, and he is also sure Nox also has something to tell him as well. He further says he heard that Nox contributed greatly to the safe return of everyone from the Chaders region, and also to the eradication of the malignant existences over there. Even Green acknowledged his abilities. When Nox confirms his brother said that to him, Theo says yes. He says that if it were not for Nox, he would not have been able to complete his night training. Theo further says, however, he did not call him here to speak of such meaningless topics. As he suggested a seemingly impossible task, accomplished it, and brought his honor to the Reinharber name. So, he will keep his promise according to what he has proposed. He then gives him a letter, which states that Chaders now belongs to Nox. Nox thanks him for his great generosity. Theo then asks him if he is interested in taking his seat. Nox wonders why Theo is suddenly acting like this. On the far side, an old man named Crimser informs a red-haired girl that the griffin died. The Reinharber bastards have finally started to move. He also heard that they have obtained the Chaders region, and it was given to the youngest son in their family. A red-haired girl asks Crimser to prepare for the war, as Reinharber's family is the one who stole something precious from her. She has nothing more to lose now. Crimser says yes, sir, and moves back. She remembers the day when she got his hands on this kingdom, and the day that she awakens. Meanwhile, Rotwell says Patriarch that his question might be a little too early for young Master Nox. Rotwell further says he is sure the Patriarch knows the value and weight of being the Patriarch of the Reinharber family as well. But Theo says no, it has to be now. Nox speaks up and says he is sorry, but he does not agree with him. More accurately, he does not agree that he is that capable right now. There is the first young Master Green as well. But Theo stops him and says he is not the one who gets to decide on that. Nox says he does not desire the position of the Patriarch, and also he is worried about the numerous things that he would have to be responsible for. Theo is surprised that being his son, he fears this position. Then he says well, he will respect his opinion for now. But he must know that a brilliant talent cannot be hidden. Humans are weak beings that will always be testing them. Nox says yes, Patriarch, and then Theo asks him to take his leave now. He must be very tired from the journey. When he returns, Jittery asks did Patriarch scold at him. He says no, don't worry, it was nothing. She tells him the accommodations of Elena and may have been prepared. He appreciates her, but she says it is nothing. She simply did her job as his maid. He says if everything in the world had a fixed set of dos and don'ts, then no one would hate each other, take from each other, or fight with each other. Then he says it is time for things to get serious. He must become the best in the best night mage training institution, Aladdin Academy. While, on the other side, Theo tells Rotwell, as expected, it was tough conversing with his son. Rotwell says that conversation might be too early for young Master Nox. If he knew the meaning of this position, his answer might have been different. But Theo says no, those eyes of his belong to someone who has already decided what they will do in the future. While he looks like he is afraid of something, it is not Patriarch's position or his father's. Rather, it is something more fundamental, like a fear that comes from looking into an abyss. He is afraid of death right now. Theo worries, why is he afraid of that? Rotwell says he might be out of line for saying this, but he thinks what happened to Madame could have been a huge shock for young Master Nox. Theo agrees and says it may be true and he may be blaming him for it, since to him he is just a pathetic person who could not even protect his mother. Rotwell says more importantly he thinks the young Master Garen has started to take action. On the other side, Talia is making preparations for going to the academy. She asks Emma if her clothes look all right. Emma says she has already seen that set of clothes more than 20 times. Emma asks if she is excited, and Talia says yes, of course, they are talking about her admission into Eldian.
Emma says that is not what she meant. She meant young Master Nox. It is her first time meeting him after he officially became her fiancé. But she does not respond over it and asks if the dress with frill looks better. When Emma responds, Talia becomes angry and says she just answered her half-heartedly because she could not be bothered. Emma says she picks up on things like that every single time. Meanwhile, Nox comes to see Elena and asks her if she is all right as she does not look good to him. May says she gets like that once she focuses on something, and tells him that she will take care of her as she stays by her side. Elena asks him to take a look at the elixir quickly. Nox, when stakes elixir, comes to know that the effects have been increasing by 200% since this was made by the alchemy genius, Elena. He becomes happy that he finally obtained it, the elixir of wind. It not only increases his stamina permanently by 1, but it also increases dexterity, a hidden stat. Dexterity and Hour of Genius make the perfect combo. It is a good choice to get this item here. As expected of the genius potion maker though, he knows things would have gotten tough if he did not get Elena to join them back there. He appreciates her for a good job, then drinks potion. He feels more energetic after drinking. Then he says now that all preparations are complete, they shall head towards Eldian Academy. His mana sensitivity genius trait has been activated as his mana stat has reached 10. Later, when he reaches there, the students recognize him as the son of the Reinharber family. Someone says he heard that he would be joining the academy in this batch. Nox feels this place is so nosy. Jitri has also arrived with him. Then, soon Emma also arrives there. He says it seems they have arrived too early. Anna says yes, they're talking about the admission ceremony of Eldian Academy after all. She asks Talia to come down and give her greetings to young Master Nox. Talia comes to greet him. He remembers that their families had agreed on the engagement without their knowledge. Talia says to him hello, and he also responds to her. Jitri says this must be the Lady Talia, the finance he mentioned. Talia hopes he has been well. He says yes, he has been all right. Then one of the genius characters of the Eldian Academy arrives there. She is the merchant star and the head of the Rivalin family that dominates the entire continent. Her name is Elena de Rivalin. When Elena sees Nox, she is surprised as she does not know he would be getting admitted into the academy too. She says nice to meet him. Nox knows she is the woman who holds great hostility towards the old Nox. She says she is the noble from the merchant family that he had looked down on. She says she never thought she would meet him again like this. Nox knows Elena de Rivalin is the only child of the wealthy Rivalin family whose wealth could move the continent, as well as one of the stars of the continent that dominates the financial world later on. Her nickname is the Fox of Wealth. Furthermore, she met Nox when he was younger. Her strained relationship with Nox is some of the karma that the old Nox had accumulated, although it now becomes his karma. Jitri can't believe there are two characters here that would drive a sword into her heart. Elena says he is acting unlike his usual self and asks if he is all right. When he asks about what she means, she says she is sure he already has an idea of that. He says he simply can't catch a break, and if she is trying to pick a fight, get lost. She says, as expected, not a single thing about him has changed. When he asks if she wants his recognition or something, she says sorry, but there is nothing she would want from the good for nothing of the Reinharber family. He knows she has zero positive feelings for him now, so he decides to check her traits first. His insight skill has been activated, and he starts searching the information about Elena. She possesses positive traits like calculation genius and acting genius, while her negative traits include Gumil's northern sword technique, and she is also proud. He thinks her traits are not very different from what he knows, and that is a relief. The middle name D of the Rivalin family was bought by Clarkson, Eleanor's father, who was a merchant. While Elena lowers her status, she has no choice but to make use of it. To put it simply, she is wrath incarnate. But the old Nox poked at the bee's hive. He was indeed the worst person alive from her perspective. She then says she will take a leave now. Unfortunately, she does not think they're friendly enough with each other to wish one another good luck. He also says there is no need for him to do that for someone as lowly as she. After that, he asks Jitri to go with him. Eldian Academy's admission ceremony is about to start. She says, "Okay, master." He plans not to shake off Talia, who is sticking to him in the context of being his fiancée anyway. He just needs to make the most of this situation and make use of her where he can.
He needs to stay on his toes. When they reach the hall, he says, as expected, the children of various reputable families are gathered here. Some of them will be useful. He also needs to recruit them in a way that does not affect the story. There are few strongest characters. He knows if he brings them over to his side, it will mess with the original story, so he needs to approach them carefully. He feels there are a lot of people looking at him. This may be his overthinking. Jitri also says there are a lot of nobles glancing at him. It seems he is quite popular. Their eyes seem to be filled with hostility, though. He counts that as being popular. Then the ceremony starts, and all the people are surprised to see that the speaker is a small girl. They think, what is that kid doing at the sacred admission ceremony of Aladdin Academy? They talk different nonsense about her, but Nox says they all are idiots. She is a total monster, actually, not someone that one can't judge based on her outer appearance. He says he needs to stay on her good side as much as possible. He asks Jitri if it is nothing, so just stay quiet if she does not want to die. That girl welcomes everyone to the academy and introduces herself as Noah von Trinity, the newly appointed dean of the academy. She says all of them still do not know this very well, but if she hears anyone say the word small again, then they will die. Then she announces the beginning of the ceremony. They will be teleported forcefully. When one of the students says they did not hear about any such rule, she says it is the rule of the new dean that was made to filter out trash talents. She hopes all of them may come back alive. Nox says he must survive no matter what. They are teleported to the forest. The examiner who is watching them shouts at them and says how they dare to sleep in front of him. They all must be out of their minds. Only one survived. Nox says he managed to endure somehow. However, he guesses the aftermath of the intermediate magic force teleport cannot be ignored. But the stone in the necklace is as shiny as it is in the game. It is so shiny that it is like there is a halo. The storyline once mentioned that the instructor once had a head full of hair. Burnon, a combat instructor and also a student, graduated from the academy during its earlier days. The game users gave him the nickname Takoyaki Brnam, a fairly dishonorable nickname because of his baldness. He is pretty skilled in terms of footwork. Nox knows there is nothing bad would come out of getting close to him. Burnon asks him why he is looking at him with pity. Nox says he did it unknowingly. His active genius skill has been activated. Burnon says he will tell him this in advance, so keep it in mind. He has very good instincts. If Nox dares to think any unpleasant thoughts about him, he won't let him off. Nox asks him to please tell him about the admission test, as they can talk about other topics later on. Burnon says all right, but before that, he will wake these sleepyheads up and suggest to him that he would cover his ears unless he wants them to explode. Then Nox puts his hands on his ears, then a sound comes and all of the sleepy students wake up. One of them says which fucker did this. Burnon says he is that fucker, and they say that student dares to frown at him. It shows he has a death wish, but that student apologizes. He then orders to move the students who are still not awake to the safe zone. After wrapping up the situation, he says he will start by telling them about Aladian Academy's admission. To summarize the admission test, first, on this island that is made of magic, they must hunt monsters with all their might. As a reward, a special colored jewel will drop from them. The less mana that is available within the jewel, the more value it has. People would be puzzled and ask why, though, as having more mana would be better. He says, however, that is only half correct. They are looking out for two things within the admission test. The first would be mana sensitivity, which has already been tested and recorded by how fast they wake up from Noah's intermediate magic. The second would be to test their ability to detect even faint amounts of mana. Such abilities would allow mages to push themselves to their limits on the battlefield. Nox thinks they are sifting out the jewels and the rocks from the start, and that is basically what is happening here. This location is a labyrinth created by the Dean of Aladdin Academy, Noah von Trinity. Bernon further says there are many foes in here that worms like them cannot even imagine fighting. So he will make an exception and allow them to move in teams. The maximum number of people per team is 8. They should start moving fast. He will wait for them at the top. He then goes away. One of the students says the spot where his head got hit still hurts, damn it, to think he would get hit on his head in all places. Nox knows in Inner Lunatic, normal results and positions won't survive in this darn game. The most important thing here is knowledge. For this terminally ill body to grow, he needs to monopolize all the advantages. For that to happen, he has no choice but to go solo. Meanwhile, Bernon, who sees him going alone, says no matter how hard he thinks it is strange, how could a new student not only endure the Dean's intermediate magic, but also decide to raid the forest alone? He thinks it is fundamentally different from that. There is a reason why he does not feel fear. That was the expression he had. He guesses the diamond on a dunghill is still a diamond. He wishes to see what this young student, Nox, is made of, the hidden dragon of the Reinharber family. He is excited to see Nox's hidden talent. On the other side, Nox starts fighting monsters alone. After some time, Talia fears where did he go, as she was going to go along with him. Talia is being told by another girl that she must be with Master Nox, as she has been given the grand task of protecting Princess Penelope. She ought to kill these monsters with a joyful heart. Talia says she thinks they have climbed up quite high. She guesses the purple crystal is the highest grade. But another girl says probably not, after all, this is a test from Noah von Trinity, one of the 4 sages. She thinks there is probably something more that is hidden. Talia agrees and says that it would be tough for everyone to climb up in their current state. She promised to help Princess Penelope sit at the highest place. The current Archeim Empire is rotten to its core. She needs to ascend the throne for it to return to its former glory. On the other side, Nox's negative trait, cold hands and feet LV3, is in effect, and his movement speed and breathing capabilities have decreased. All of his stats have decreased, and he is now moving slower. He knew this would happen. Soon, the penalties of cold hands and feet disappeared due to the basic magic ignition. He says if he wants to make use of this darn body, he needs to get rid of the coldness within it first. He reaches the top of the mountain, but there is just way too much ice here. While this place looks like a normal island, that is not the case. Noah von Trinity designed this place, Noah's artificial labyrinth, and everything here is made of magic. Because of that, all the living things and monsters that appear here are also all made by her magic. He does not know just how much darn mana she has, but that is not important. Soon he sees ice troll monsters. They are notorious for having tons of HP and regeneration. These are some of the monsters that kill a lot of newbies, but that means nothing to him. He knows while Noah might be crazily obsessed over talented students, she won't drive students who have not even been admitted yet too far into the corner. Moreover, ice trolls are not so weak that students could kill them. They are at least lower intermediate grades. If this was a real situation, it would be a test of the perfect difficulty for people to get slaughtered. There is a certain attack pattern that the trolls in this test have. The first troll that appeared could also go for a vertical strike and will always be in the center. And the next troll that appears would perform a horizontal strike. While it has a bigger attack range than the first, it is slow. The last one would also use stabs. It is the weakest in terms of power, so he can parry it like this. Then he starts fighting with ice trolls, and after killing many, he finally finds the gray crystal. This is the reason why he has not bothered looking at other crystals so far. The gray crystal is a hidden piece that Noah had planted here. He thinks that he can exchange this for the scroll that he needs the most right now. Meanwhile, Elena and her fellows also find a crystal and say at this level they should be the top scorers among their peers. Her fellows say she is incredible. Elena says yes, well, that is not bad. It is as they have said. This should be good enough to get a good result, but she also feels so uneasy. She remembers the time when earlier her father said he heard that she quarreled with the young son of the Reinharber family. He advised her to become a family that no one can look down on. They need to climb even higher. He said she should have brought him over to her side, even if it meant giving everything she had. She wonders why Nox von Reinharber disappeared on his own when there is nothing to be gained for attempting this test alone. She thinks he perhaps knows a hidden secret regarding this test. She then says she would like to propose to everyone here. She says if anyone would like to climb even higher with her, the rival and family promises to reward that who would go even more handsomely. Then her group fellows say they could get injured if they climb any higher. They think it would be too dangerous. Eleanor says naturally, with great risks come greater rewards. Then a boy and a girl agree and say they will go with her. When they agree, she thinks it all comes down to money. She does not know what Nox is thinking, but no harm would come from checking it out. She then asks them to start moving. Meanwhile, Nox says the reason for taking a huge risk and moving alone is simple: there is a huge return. There are close to 0 chances to enhance the hour of the genius. It is nigh impossible unless he unlocks the hidden stat agility. It can't be helped even if he attracts attention. Then Paracelsus arrives there and says he did not think he would meet Nox again in such a place. He further says he is quite happy that they get to meet again, the young lord of the Reinharber family. But Nox does not like this and thinks this is weird. This should not be happening. Paracelsus is one of the strongest characters in Inner Lunatic, one of the 3 sword emperors. Nox thinks about what he is doing here, as he is supposed to fight the protagonist in this chapter and be inspired by the protagonist's kind personality as he chooses to save Eleanor, who falls into danger. Paracelsus says that the thing Nox is carrying is a little interesting, so he asks Nox to give it to him. But Nox says if he is thinking right, then the protagonist that is supposed to be in this world does not exist now. When Paracelsus starts to fight with him, Nox decides to stop him. When Nox says he is trying to mess up with the story, Paracelsus says he does not know what he is talking about, but something smells suspicious from the start. Because when he met him in Chaders, he was already using that sword perfectly. Nox cannot understand what Paracelsus is trying to say. Then Paracelsus says he seems to be worried about something, and then says it would be better if Nox just handed the sword over to him, and they both go their ways. The black crystal, that seems to be the way to get the highest marks. Nox says what if he refuses? Then Paracelsus says he will have no choice but to do whatever it takes to take it from him. He also guesses it cannot be helped since he already caught on to that. Nox says how detestable that is what he planned to do from the beginning. He thinks that Paracelsus might be growing to become one of the strongest characters, but his talent still has not matured yet. While he is a genius, he would win if he used the hour of the genius. Then he realizes he cannot use that in this fight. He thinks if the protagonist does not exist in this world, then he has to save her. This may be a gamble, but it is one he needs to take. He then says Paracelsus is not the only one who knows the secret. Paracelsus says since he remembered his name, he doubts he is going to ask him to go easy on him. Nox further says he knows Paracelsus enrolled in the academy to uncover the secret of his master's death. Eleanor, on the other side, starts climbing with her fellows. Her hidden skills inform her that something is happening far away. She says there is something that she would like to confirm. That is the fighting between Paracelsus and Nox. Her yellow-haired fellow Echidna says they do not intend to participate in senseless combat. Eleanor says objectively speaking, it would be hard to win against those two unless they are gravely injured. Moreover, if they decide to work together because they are both in a crisis, then it could get even more dangerous for them. Then another fellow says she will follow her orders. It is strange for Eleanor that the Nox von Reinharber she knew was supposed to be a hopeless good for nothing. She does not know when he became so strong. They reach the place where they fighting. When Talia asks Echidna if she knows who Nox is fighting with, Echidna says she did not know that the Destroyer of the East would be among the new students. She thinks his name is Paracelsus. He is also known as a grey wolf. Even from a young age, he has been famous for massacring numerous bandit groups in the East. Echidna says she is also seeing the 5th son of the Reinharber family in a new light. She did not expect him to be that skilled with the sword. If he was not a lustful good for nothing, he might have made an excellent knight. But Talia corrects her and says Nox is not lustful. Meanwhile, Paracelsus is surprised to see Nox is wavering, which is a natural response. Nox knows since Celsus was his only teacher. Moreover, he is already dead, because of that brat in Mill's Academy. Nox says it is enough being polite. He says it is not like he is the one who killed his teacher. They continue to attack each other. Nox observes his attack patterns have become simpler. He may be a genius character, but he is still young. Paracelsus asks him to stop this nonsense, but Nox says he will keep saying it and also sees Paracelsus's attacks are getting sharper, so he decides not to drag this on for too long. The moment he uses his teacher's sword technique, living sword, his defeat will be inevitable. There is a reason why it is the Sword Emperor's sword technique. He says seeing how Paracelsus is trying to take from others, he is truly a lowly commoner. Paracelsus's trait, scorns nobles, has been activated. Paracelsus says the ones above them that made such a shitty world are the nobles. Nox says he simply needs someone to hate, as he is wasting his time doing that. He just needs to drag this out a little longer, as the monster attacking Elena will appear at 9 p.m. sharp.
The system tells him the current time is 8:58 p.m. Paracelsus says he can still dig that information out of him after he cut off a limb or two of his. Nox warns him that he cannot escape unscathed after harming a noble. Paracelsus says he will think about it later, but now they have a bit too much of an audience. Nox says he does not care since this will be the last attack. They again attack each other. Soon Elena is surprised to see Nox is accelerated in an instant, even though he's up against Paracelsus, the strongest among the new students. Something is approaching a black shadow that is moving quickly. When she sees it, there is a Nightwalker. She fears that she can't dodge its attack and is going to die here out of nowhere. Then Nox appeared there and dodged the attack. When she asks why he did this, he says failing to kill even such a small thing while moving together is a natural reaction. Nightwalker is a mid to high level demon. Moreover, it was not originally in Noah's labyrinth. That thing was a real monster. The one who killed Paracelsus's master. It was supposedly involved in this incident. Elena was destined to be a sacrifice to it, but her cold nature began to soften after being saved by the protagonist. But that is meaningless. He then tells them that there is no protagonist in this world. Echidna says that is too harsh. He indeed saved Elena, but what happened just now was an irrational situation. Nox says she is a princess and bows in front of her. Echidna says this situation should be accounted for by Eliden's instructors and Noah von Trinity, the dean. Nightwalker is not a demon student like they should be dealing with. Nox says an enemy does not choose its opponent, and it is true, he thought she, Princess Penelope, would know this better than anyone. Talia stops him and says do not insult Princess, and further says he agrees there is a problem with the situation, and that is why he stepped in to help. Dust pink hair and vertical pupils, Echidna von Zeno is the future head of the Zeno family, closest to the princess, known as the Serpent of Greed. Naturally, Reinharber and Zeno are not friends. After all, the dark and holy families can never get along. There is no such easy plot in the inner lunatic. Nox says he has nothing to say to the dog of the holy family. Bernon comes there and asks them to stop fighting with each other. When he tells them the exam is over, Nox shows him a black gem. He says he never thought someone would bring a black gem. That is surprisingly excellent, except for being incredibly arrogant. The top scorer of the entrance exam is Nox von Reinharber, who brought the black gem. The rest who brought the purple gems will be recorded as joint second place. Princess Echidna asks if the Nightwalker's attack was also part of the entrance exam. As it did not seem like a beast from the void, they needed a thorough explanation. Bernon says they are in the process of investigating that matter. Although it is not sufficient for risking life, Elena will receive a separate reward, says Bernon. Furthermore, the white-haired one, since he saved his peers, will receive a special reward too. Nox says he does not need it, as getting entangled with Elena in this manner is out of the question, even in a world twisted by injustice without a protagonist. This is not right. He knows, more importantly, accepting a reward here would mean acknowledging he acted to save her. He should avoid unnecessary misunderstandings as much as possible. When he wants to go back, Elena asks him the reason why he saved her. He says just when things were going smoothly, she just happened to be there while killing the beast. He knows Elena bearing the nickname the Golden Fox. She is cold and calculating and believes everything in the world, even people's hearts, can be bought with money. After returning from the exam, she still ponders why Nox saves her. He even refused the reward offered by Instructor Bernon. She knows he answers that she just happened to be there while killing the beast. That is such an unbelievable lie. Her servant says it does not make much sense. He is nothing but a rascal. She says no, it cannot be. The lie was not true. There must be another reason. She thinks she needs to investigate more. The servant says she will dig up as much information as she can. But Eleanor says no, she will verify it with her own eyes. If the Reinharber family knows they are snooping around, they won't stay idle. On the other side, Jitri tells Nox that he looks pale, perhaps the chilblains are acting up again. He says if it is chilblains, he just had and recovered from them a moment ago. He asks her not to worry about it. He says further that if there is no protagonist, someone must take up the role. To comfortably regain his memory and find the one who sent those mysterious messages, this is essential. But the Nox he is inhabiting is a villain. He says the only way in this damned world is to simultaneously play the roles of both villain and protagonist. On the other side, a knight informs a yellow-haired girl named Luna Lady that the mines are starting to move. She says a storm of blood will sweep the continent once more. He asks Knight Duff to get ready, they will achieve their purpose for the downfall of the REINCARNATE Empire. Nox knows there is one thing that gamers who have played numerous games feel the same about. That is the fact that there is a very thin line that separates the protagonist from the final villain. He agrees with that as well. He says both of them have quite a lot of overlapping situations, excluding the boss monster, which is an absolute evil. In most of the recent games, the villains that appear usually have gone through trauma or are living a disadvantaged life. That is the same with the protagonists. To put it simply, even villains have their reasons as to why they are who they are. People have always been crazy about such villains. However, this does not mean that good characters and villains are completely the same. The villain is still a villain, they cannot become protagonists. That only applies to games though. He knows in a world headed for destruction without a protagonist, the only way for a villain to survive would be to become both the villain and the protagonist. He says he does not enjoy risking his life, but it cannot be helped for what needs to be done. He has no choice but to do this. The greatest villain organization in Inner Lunatic is a group where those who want to bring down the imperial family together. He decides to go there. On the other side, the entrance exam committee held a meeting to discuss the exam. Burnon says it is not going to be anything dangerous. Another member says Burnon was the one who supervised the test and asks if he made some sort of a mistake again. But Burnon says he did not do anything. Noah stops them from quarreling and says she has already informed everyone about the contents, so they must pay attention to it. Another member says the dean is talking about the enemy that appeared during the admission test that threatened the academy. Noah says yes, that person's objective is probably the fall of the Eldian Academy and also the fall of the Empire. Eleanor de Rivalian is just the start. She says everyone must know that Eleanor, who is called the star of the finance world, was targeted. One member says yes, they know. It is because the Rivalian merchantry that is run by the Rivalian family deals with 70% of the goods that are distributed across the REINCARNATE Empire. Another one says if their enemy is intentionally targeting the rival merchantry, that means they already have a next target. Noah says yes, and so what happened this time around is a challenge and also a warning sent to the academy. That is why they must make thorough preparations for what is coming. They all agree on it. She further says there is one more person that might be considered dangerous. When she asks about that person, she says a student might be the most talented in this batch of new students. One of the teachers asks who this student whom Noah von Trinity acknowledges as talented. This is the first time it has happened after what happened to the princess. She says the name of this student is Nox von Reinharber. Teachers can't believe that the notorious lustful good-for-nothing of the Reinharber family can be such talented. But she says that child might even be stronger than her. Meanwhile, Nox arrives at the inn, and one of the members asks what he is doing here. He thinks this kid has lost. Nox thinks he must be Crayon, the owner of this inn to the outside world, but his true identity is a little different. He then tells Carian the secret code, which is that moonlight on Talon Feather cheers for the Empire. Carian says go on in, although he has no idea why that person would give him the secret code. Nox asks him to introduce himself, so Carian says everyone calls him Carian. Nox then moves inside. He picks up a few bottles to go to the Inner Lunatic. His status window informs his mana will flow in reverse temporarily. Mana Sensitivity Genius will be deactivated. The player is teleported to the designated location. Nox feels his stats are still too low. He feels dizzy. He sees himself at a place where Luna is pointing a sword towards him. Luna is the leader of the lunatic, and she is the only Sword Emperor among the 3 Sword Emperors whose face is unknown. He tells her that he is here for her. She is surprised that not only does he know about their secret headquarters, but also knows her name. She again asks him about his identity. He tells his name and says he would like to join a lunatic. On the other side, Paracelsus is sitting alone in his room and thinks Nox von Reinharber looks like he knew something about old man Celsus's death. He already knew that his teacher was dead. He also doubts Nox thinks that one of the 3 Sword Emperors coincidentally lost his life because of someone else. He says the shame of the Reinharber family, what a joke, and he can't believe they'd tell such a lie. He remembers during the fight, although it was only for a very short instant, he completely beat Nox in speed. He also admits he has never seen anyone as fast as him except the old man. He also thinks all the information about him was probably manipulated from the start. The rumors of him and his behavior, everything was a lie. He is still unable to find the reason why Reinharber's family hid someone as skilled as him. He says he does not know it, but it is none of his business. He will just trample whatever stands in his way. All the more so if a noble is what stands in his way. The Empress of the Empire, Esteban von Archheim, lost her mind and tried to lead through tyranny, causing the authority of the imperial family to be split. Her daughter, Penelope, is known as a benevolent princess and is raising her forces while opposing the first prince in the political scene. Paracelsus also remembers the time when his teacher asked him to choose a side to survive. He was asked to join Eldian Academy. His teacher said he must think about which side he wants to stand on while he's there. That's his final assignment. The teacher said he has given everything he has to him, and also said sorry for leaving this world first. Paracelsus says if he is dead, then he must have disappeared from his life already. He ponders what a dead person is constantly appearing in his dreams. On the other side, Luna is still pointing the sword towards Nox. Luna is one of the 3 Sword Emperors, a monster that stands shoulder with knights that have reached the peak at the mere age of 20. Luna's swordsmanship is not something that anyone can catch up to. Nox thinks, moreover, that unlike the black sword arts that he can only learn if he becomes the patriarch, he can learn Luna's sword techniques as long as he gains her trust. Of course, he will have to join a lunatic and prove himself for that to happen. Luna asks him why would the son of the Reinharber family be interested in a criminal organization. He says he wants to for the sake of bringing down the Archheim Empire. She probably already knows that they need to first bring down Eldian Academy, which is under the influence of the Empire if they want to bring down the Empire. He says he will become her spy. She asks if he thinks he is competent enough to do that. He says of course he can do that. She admits he is a bold one and then asks about his name. When he introduces himself, she orders her servant Duff to prepare the lunar trial. Duff gives Nox some robe-like clothes to wear and orders him to follow him. While going, Nox thinks it is good that everything is going as planned. When they reach a place, Duff orders him to go to the top of the altar and kill all of the enemies that appear, and keep in mind that he must not allow the robe to fall off. When Nox asks about the reason for this, Duff says that is the only way he won't be exposed to Berserk. Nox knows the reason he has to wear this robe, the abnormal status Berserk. It is one of the worst traits. In return for causing the player to go crazy, it would raise their abilities to their limits. The Crimson Moon, once exposed to it, most people would go crazy. It might be more accurate to say it is Berserk. So, there are 2 conditions to pass this trial. To stand within the light of the Red Moon and be wary of the Berserk abnormal status, and to defeat the monsters that appear. Originally, the game did not give any information on how to pass this trial. Because in a world with a protagonist, no one would want to join a villain organization. No one knew how to pass, but he knew he should be able to do it. Luna says once he takes the trial, one of the 2 things will happen to him. He will pass the trial and become a member of the lunatic, or he will die here and become a corpse. Then he is asked to start the trial test. He sees many monsters and thinks this is not on a level that the current he can handle. Each monster is a chimera that is at least intermediate rank, and just the number of monsters is already way too ridiculous well. There is still a way to do this though. Luna thinks he has gone crazy. The Crimson Moonlight has caused the player to receive the abnormal status Berserk. Nox is warned that he may lose control over his mind, and he will not be able to recover his mind after he loses it. The effect of the negative trait Berserk has been activated, however, luck and charm have been excluded from the list of stats to be increased by Berserk. Luna again says he looks crazy now. Duff also says he can't believe the player threw his robe away. That is as good as throwing his life away. He asks Luna to stop him, but she says he is not the type that listens to warnings to begin with. Whether he dies or not, it does not concern them. Duff says, but he is from the Reinharber family, and if Theo von Reinharber tries to harm Lunatic, that would be bad for them. But Luna says that she would make sure that that would not happen. She also says Theo is not the kind of person that is overflowing with fatherly love. She then asks him to observe the player first. That daring brat must have a plan. Duff says he will follow what she says. Meanwhile,
Nox is fighting with the monster all alone. He kills many of them and says the whole world has been dyed red. That is the description of the lunar trial within the inner lunatic. Various stats of him have increased a little. He thinks that is not all. His talents, height, and shoulders have also gotten better, taller, and broader. He says he is now at a level that his peers would not be able to fight against easily. The Berserk status abnormality is one of the worst traits within the inner lunatic. It is also one that only appears when there is a crimson moon. But he came here with the intent of making use of this from the start, because of the talent he has. His status window tells him due to having two specific genius traits, he has neutralized the Crimson Moon's status abnormality. Swordsmanship genius, combat genius, and mana sensitivity genius. The status abnormality has been neutralized temporarily. He says it is simple. If they look at the level of the talents from the eyes of this world, it is freaking unfair, and he is the one that benefits from it. Due to the effects of the artifact, the Black Flame Ring, his life has been extended by 2 days and 7 hours. He thinks if anyone has a problem with it, then go ahead and become terminally ill too. He is killing all of the monsters while fighting bravely. After some time, when the fight is over, he comes to Luna and asks if the trial is over. A little while ago, Luna says to Duff that she thinks they will have to acknowledge him as one of the Lunatic's members. Duff also admits there is only a handful of people on the continent with that level of talent. Then she orders Nox to come back as he has passed the trial. So when he comes back, he asks if the trial is over now, and she says yes, it is over. She also says Theo has raised a monster and says Nox is an interesting one. Then Duff gives him a robe that the only noble members of the lunatic can wear. Equipment has been obtained. He has obtained the inner lunatic member's robe. After getting this, he officially becomes a member of the lunatic. By achieving this, he will gain a special skill, Oath of the Moonlight. Members of the lunatic will also be able to confirm identities through the pattern of the robe. The robe is actually from the threads of the Black Spider. It neutralized all light attribute status abnormalities. The special thing about the skill he attained Oath of the Moonlight is that its effects are only activated when he wears the lunatic member's robe. A radiant moon pattern will be seen on the robe. Because the pattern can only be recognized by a member of the lunatic, they cannot be seen by outsiders. When he sees all this information, he says this is fucking awesome. He also comes to know that the passive skill, Oath of the Moonlight, is also a skill that will be useful anywhere. Although it is a pity that it has to be used at night. It is a passive skill that can multiply his attack power by 1-2 times. That is rare in inner lunatics. He has also gained an extra stat point in willpower. He has gotten the best results. Luna says it seems he wants more from her. He then says as far as he knows, no newcomers have performed as well as he on the lunar trial. In that case, he was thinking that he should be treated accordingly. She says, well, not bad, bold newcomer. Although she wonders how long he will be able to act this audaciously. She asks Duff to give him an artifact. When he gives her, she says this is an artifact that a lunatic obtained recently. Its name is Moon Shadow. She says, as its name suggests, it is an artifact that creates a clone, and it will probably help him as he becomes a spy in the academy. He says finally he got his hands on it. He is delighted to get the Moonlight Shadow. This is the biggest reason why he got into contact with a lunatic so early in the storyline. It is an artifact that can create a clone of the player. He can be the protagonist and the villain. This is the artifact that will allow him to do that. He thanks the Captain Luna for all of this. Luna asks him to listen carefully that there are a total of 5 ranks within Lunatic. Excluding the captain and vice captain, the members are ranked from 1 to 3. Since he is here for the first time, he will start from rank 3. He agrees with what she says. She says, all right, stand by until he gets his first mission. She also hopes he won't disappoint her. After that, she thought that kid was pretty interesting. Duff also agrees and says he has no idea how he endured the madness of the Crimson Moon. She understood why he said this because people who are not geniuses would not even last 5 minutes. Even if he is a genius to be able to fight without the robe on, it means he has got enough guts to put his life on the line. She asks Duff to let's watch him for now, if he will entertain them, and if he will be of help to their organization. After completing the trial, when Nox comes back, Karyan says it seems he has taken care of his business. Nox says yes somewhat, and thinks others would ask him why he did such a crazy thing if
If he had risked his life at the altar. The way to perfectly resist the trait, berserk, would be to have 2 specific genius traits. Simply put, only he can use the power of the Crimson Moon. Karyan says he thinks he has gotten whatever he wanted. Nox asks if has some business with him. Karyan says it just feels unfair and says self-introductions are about introducing their names to each other. So Nox introduces himself and then goes from there. After he is gone, Karyan says it will be pretty tough trying to keep up with the Academy's schedule. But if it is Nox, then he guesses it would be harder for him to hide his strength. Later, when Nox comes back, he says it looks like the plan progressed smoothly. Jitri says it is not fair that he secretly sneaks out on the first day of school without his maid. He says no way, he checked that she was asleep before he went out. She then says she has told him multiple times before, but he must refrain from doing dangerous stuff. Even though a lot of negative rumors have been spread within the family, there is still a chance for rehabilitation, she says further. But he asks her to keep that aside and asks about her day, as he knows that maids and servants take lessons too. She says nothing much happened. But from her style of saying this, he observes that means something did happen. He knows even though those are lessons that only maids and servants take, most of them are low-rank nobles. Since Jitri is now a commoner, she is a perfect target for them to pick a fight with. He then gives her a pouch and says if she runs into any problems during the lessons, open this pouch. He again says only open it when she runs into trouble, because it is an item that will resolve any situation very reasonably. She asks if she can open it now, but he refuses. Then she says okay, she will. Open it whenever she is in such a situation. He says that is good and do not hesitate to use it if she finds herself in a dangerous situation. He is then informed through the window that he has successfully joined the Eldian Academy and has cleared the first main story. He is asked to open his email as he receives an email there. When he opens it, the mail says, "Hello, Nox, long time no see." If he has received this letter, then that means he has succeeded in getting admitted into Eldian Academy. He'd be able to become a student of Eldian Academy without a problem. When he reads the letter, he observes that the tone of this letter is as if the writer can see through him. This person knows him. The writer also says in the letter that the traits are only just beginning. He probably had a tough time up until now as well, but what awaits him is even tougher and will hurt even more. No one but he can do this. After reading the letter, he knows this sounds irresponsible, but he will do his best to help him as much as he can. The content of the mail is not much help this time either. He thinks it is time to reorganize his thoughts. There is a high chance that the person who sent him this mail is an inner lunatic GM. The fact that he can freely interfere with a system, and the fact that he can send him something proves that that is the most likely conclusion. And so, he must focus as much as he can on clearing the main storyline. His lost memories and clearing the game are enough with the problems that he cannot resolve right now. He then decides to have a look at the gift and clicks the View Character System. He sees many individuals' names there including Theo von Reinharber and Talia. Originally, to use insight in inner lunatics, one would need to see the target in person. But he says this is different. He can check the status of any characters that he has met at any time. He thinks this gift is something that a GM would be able to send. After some time, his stamina increased by 0.2 in such a short time. He knows Theo already holds the title of the Sword Emperor at his age, and he is still getting stronger. When he looked at Theo's increased stat, he realized this. This world only looks like a game, but it is still not the actual game. This field is difficult. He guesses he should be glad that the choice of classes went smoothly. The next day, when students gathered, a few girls recognized Jitri and said she was the one from the Lavilia family who become a commoner. Someone says she thinks that is her, and she also does not know how she can be so shameless as to come to Eldian with her young master. That girl also says if she was her, she would have been too embarrassed to come here. But Jitri probably wants a chance to strike it big in life, and she also has a pretty face. It would be easy for her to bewitch others with it. She is the maid of the rumored good-for-nothing son after all. Another girl says from what she heard, he is known to be very lustful. She would make use of that. Which situation was her family in again? Well, since it is not a famous place, there won't be a need for them to be worried about her, they discuss with each other. Jitri, after listening to their conversation, thinks she has endured countless insults hurled at her. Since a fallen noble does not have a future, things like that are a luxury. However, she must not allow it to cause any inconvenience to young Master Nox. She then comes close to them and says if they do not mind, may she have some of their time. One of the girls introduces herself as the daughter of a count. She is Giselle of the Flores family that is serving young Master Kane. She also asks if Jitri thinks she has the time to talk to a mere commoner like her. Jitri says she heard him spreading unfounded rumors about her young master just now. That maid says what about so, as it is not her fault that there are negative rumors about her young master being spread in the high society. She also says if she is asking her to apologize, she will be rejecting that request. Jitri understands it is just like what young Master Nox told her, status matters greatly in this place. It can't be helped then. Then she opened that pouch given to her by Nox. Nox comes out of it, and that maid says that scared her. Nox introduces himself and says he does not know what happened here, but that does not matter. If Jitri has chosen to open this open, one thing is for sure, they or their lot is over there. He says they will be dead meat and must know that he will be sending their heads back to their families. He threatens them. After he vanishes, that maid sits down and asks about her name. Jitri gives her an introduction. That maid just sighed. This is bad. The Reinharber family could easily erase her family from this world in an instant. She says sorry to Miss Jitri for being respectful and says she will never do it again. Please forgive her this once. All maids bowed in front of her. She thinks it got resolved just as the young master said it would. But this means there will be more negative rumors about him though. Then she moves from there. Later when she meets Nox, she asks if he is right. As his dark circles are quite deep, he says he is fine, since he managed to complete the class selection somehow. A boy comes there and pays his greetings to Nox. When Nox asks about his introduction, the boys say he is Rick, Miscellaner de Rivalin's servant, and it is an honor for him to meet Nox. Nox feels a dangerous character is approaching him from the first half of the story. He knows Rick is deceitful. In the next 3 main stores, he betrays the Rivalin merchantry to deepen the story's ploy. He is a servant of a demon and a demonic worshipper. In other words, he is the traitor who will backstab a leaner. The saying that the enemy of his enemy if a friend is just utter bullshit in the inner lunatic. Rick is simply the worst kind of trash. Getting involved with him will bring more harm than good. Rick gives him a present and says this is from his miss to him. It is a precious artifact. But Nox did not accept it and says he got lost. Although he is curious as to what the artifact is, he knows it is poisonous. When Rick still stays there, Nox again asks him to go away and also tries to pull out his sword, but then Rick moves. Nox also turns back. Jitri asks him to wait for her and says he has a feeble body and may fall while waking too quickly. Just recently, he got the chills, the flu, and cold hands and feet at the same time. She had never thought that someone could be as weak as he. He says he won't deny that, but he is right now, and he won't die suddenly. She says yes, she knows, but she just feels so uneasy. He is usually right in the center of the events. He also admits that he thinks he is pretty popular in that sense. She knows more importantly than being her master, Nox is someone who saved her life. Moreover, in the case that a character possesses the trait of single-minded, they would be very worried when they are apart from their master. She tells him he seemed more emotional than usual while talking with Rick. He asks Jitri to listen carefully and says no matter what happens, having him around is never a good thing. She wonders if it is because of the problem he had with Miscellaner. She knows he is not someone who would act that way. She is sure there is a good reason for this. Then she says she will keep him at a distance as per his advice. He says that is good and says if he thinks about what will happen in the future, they must also keep Elena at a distance. Otherwise, they will attract a lot of attention. From now on, they must be really careful, he tells her. When he reaches the class, he feels a little disturbed and asks why on earth he has been met with such tribulations from the start. The instructor says today they will be forming the team that they will be with for the next year and will go through team bonding. To form a party, the most important thing is to know one another, he says further. Nox thinks he is too optimistic about his situation. He did not think that having no friends would also be an issue in a game. The instructor says to cadets who get along with one another, please form a team of 4. They will be given 30 minutes for this. Nox feels it can't be done, and it is impossible for the public outcast Nox to gather 3 team members. He then asks the teacher
What happens if they are unable to form a team. The teacher says then he will be given an F grade and he won't be allowed to repeat this course, so please take note. He is also informed that he can't work alone. Nox feels it is very difficult to graduate from Eldian Academy. If he gets an F in even one subject, he will be expelled immediately, and he must not let that happen. He sees students start forming teams. He needs to think of a way for Nox, an outcast, to make friends. A yellow-haired boy asks Elena to team up with him, as he is pretty athletic even though he doesn't look like it. But another girl says no, Elena will team up with her, as she will treat her to a special meal that only her family can provide. But Elena comes towards Nox and says it looks like he did not like her gift. She asks him to give her the chance to repay her debt. She says she will team up with him. He thinks although that sounded arrogant, he knew instantly that he would end up on a team with her. But Talia arrives there and says Nox will form a team with her. Nox thinks he has another burden joining him. He knows Talia is kind to begin with. Whether or not she likes him, she must feel sad. Nox, her fiancé, is all alone, so she wants to help him. He says that drives him nuts though. Elena thinks this is unexpected. He asks what she means. She says she is fascinated that someone like him has a friend. Based on what Nox has done so far, she can't exactly refute, but strangely, she is getting angry. She says they just need one more member. Nox says it looks like his opinion does not even matter anymore. She says it is not like he has got any other choice. He says she and her sharp intuition and says it is as Elena has said. To recover his memory, he needs to stay in Eldian Academy, and he also needs to get good results. For the sake of the upcoming episode, he must place within the top 10%. The first battle would be against an archdemon. That will be the first time for him to act out both the villain and hero's roles. Later, a student named Peel joins them. Nox says, fortunately, their last member is a normal person, and he also possesses an active skill, Power of Blessing, that can be used once time only. After seeing his stats, Nox says this is awesome. Although he has mediocre stats, that is not the main point. The Power of Blessing is one of the most overpowered skills within the inner lunatic, that forcefully awakens the talent of the protagonist's team member. Although, unfortunately, it cannot be used on the protagonist himself. This is strange. He wonders why some characters from the academy possess a rare skill that only saints and saintesses from a monastery can have. He then says he can think about it later. Peel says he is looking forward to working with them all. Elena welcomes him and says she hopes everyone will work hard. Talia also says she is also glad to be a part of this team. Nox says he hopes they do not hold him back and pull their weight. The teacher says it looks like everyone is teamed up and hopes all of them get to know each other well by next week. He also announced their current teams would remain the same for 1 semester, and then he dismissed the class. When Nox calls him a crazy old man, Talia says he just spoke his inner thoughts out loud. He says he knows it, and he also wanted him to hear it. Talia says it is not good to swear at the professor, but he says whatever, the team has been formed anyway. Then he goes from there, but soon stopped by her who is asking about his lesson plans. She says she is just asking because she is curious about it. He says she is trying to find out what the easiest subjects to get high marks are. She should be aware that he would not tell her this for free. He is not letting her trick him into giving her free information. That is never going to happen, he says, and then moves. Later, he reaches the Academy's 4th district along with Jitri. As expected of Eldian Academy, there are quite a lot of things that need to be bought. With all the grimoires, equipment, and textbooks, Jitri guesses there is a reason why they say that commoners would have a hard time graduating due to money. Nox says, well, that does not affect him. In any case, if one has a talent that can graduate from this academy, they will be able to get a lot of sponsors even if they are a commoner. Unless that talent is useless, there is a low chance that money will become a problem. Jitri feels it is getting a little noisy. He says it is a district where all sorts of people gather after all, so anything can happen. He says they do not need to worry about them. He sees a person, Tui, shouting at a customer and telling him to get lost if he is not going to buy anything. He is just getting in the way of other people buying it. That customer is the son of a top 3 dark family, the young patriarch of the Marvas family. His name is Leon von Marvas. He is also probably poor right now because his family went broke. Nox says even so, he is a kind person, so he hopes he will get past this.
Leon says to the shopkeeper that he is sorry, but he is just trying to make a reasonable purchase. But the shopkeeper says it is not reasonable when he is just lifting and weighing the same items. He also asks him to stop talking bullshit and get lost. He thinks the standards of Eldian Shore have dropped. He can't believe that the academy took in a beggar. Leon becomes angry and says he is sorry, but he can't forgive him for saying that they are beggars. Leon plays magic on him. Nox, who is seeing them, says Leon is out of his mind. He is batshit crazy. He should not be doing this even if that guy triggered him. He runs towards them to stop them. There are this many people here in the 4th district and Leon wants to use his mana to use his black magic. That is nonsense. Jitri tries to stop her master, but Nox says that kid has gone completely crazy. Those eyes look like he is about to create trouble, so he needs to stop him. Tui asks Leon if he has gone crazy as he does not know what he has just done. When he tries to move forward, Nox climbs over his head and comes in between them. Tui gets angry and says how he dares to try to climb over his head. Other students also start watching them. On the other side, Talia tells Emma that even though she has teamed up with Nox, he won't let her know what his class schedule is like. This is him being shy because he is going through puberty. Emma says there is no way she would know what he is thinking. She asks Miss Talia to calm down. But Talia says she tried to be as mature as she could. She tried not to judge people easily and tried to not hold Nox back. But still, she gets hurt. Emma knows she will stay dejected for a few days at this rate. If she knew this would happen, she would not have spoken so nicely to Master Nox to her. She remembers when a time ago, Talia asked her why his finance was so cold towards her, and that time Emma tells her it is because he is undergoing puberty. That is how boys at his age usually act. They would grumble all the time and act coldly towards others. She thinks that was the time when Talia started to develop more feelings for him, and that time she did not think it would become a huge problem. She is sure that Miss Talia likes Master Nox. She then tells Miss Talia that she does not think that is what Master Nox truly feels. Since he is already her fiancé, he might be acting like that so he can keep a clear line between her personal life and her life in the academy. She held Emma's hands and said she knew that Emma was knowledgeable at dating. Emma sounds like a pro in dating. She says she will keep asking her for advice whenever she has concerns from now on. But Emma says sorry Miss Talia, as she has never dated anyone before. Then the door knocks and Eleanor comes inside. When Emma gives her introduction and asks about Eleanor says she is Talia's teammate and she was wondering if she is available for a short moment. Emma says F did not make a prior appointment, please arrange for one at a later day. But Eleanor says she is here to talk about Nox von Reinharber, so they become agreed to listen to her. Eleanor says nice to meet her, as they are meeting for the second time today. Meanwhile, in the 4th district, while Tui asks about Nox's identity when he is informed about this, he asks if he is the one from the Reinharber family who got admitted into the academy. Nox says he does not like repeating himself though. Then Tui apologizes and says he was unable to recognize who he was because of the robe he was wearing. Nox asks him to get lost and says this is him being generous. He hopes he does not have to repeat this for the 3rd time. Then Nox comes towards Leon. Leon says that he was talking to him though. Nox says he might as well beg the Imperial family to arrest him. Leon understands that since it is illegal for them to learn magic before they become adults. He says he did not think that far ahead. He then says his apologies to Nox as he has helped him. Nox says if he understands his situation, he buys what he needs and gets lost. And if he doesn't have enough, use the pouch that Nox gives him. Leon becomes happy to see there is money inside the pouch. He then asks why Nox is helping him, and says if he is trying to make him feel indebted to him, it won't work. Nox says those few pennies mean nothing to him though. He can't say he does not have any purpose behind it. Leon says that he supposes this money is for shutting his mouth. The power of the undead, he feels the unique power used by the Marvis family that controls the undead from him. He drops the pen and says he is breaking the deal down Reinharber. He becomes furious about why Nox possesses the power of his Marvis family. This concludes the latest chapter, and we will be ending it here. I hope you enjoyed this recap. See you at the next one.